All right, welcome back to the party, everybody. This is Morty, and I am your host, Sludge, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you. And let's party! Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch this, even though you missed the live party. Guys, that is the best part, so make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe, ring the bell, and you will never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. Also, head over to TheIndianJesus.com for your very own official The Indian Jesus merch, only at TheIndianJesus.com. All right. Let's welcome our guest, Pitt's Take. Welcome to the channel. Welcome. For those For those who don't know who you are, who are you? What do you do? And where can I find you?
Hi, I'm Jeremy Pittman, but I've been Pitt longer than I can remember. I'm from South Louisiana, and I spend an awful lot of time thinking. I have redesigned the MBTI system, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And you can find me on YouTube. I'm on all the alternatives of BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey. I also do a daily tic-tac where I do an inspirational message in the form of a short. So.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Pitt. So we got together because you had actually originally done a little bit of a breakdown of Ian Crossland from the show that I did with him. I have the opportunity, guys. If you have not seen that interview, please go check it out. And you had some very interesting takes, some that I didn't fully understand. And I jokingly was like, yeah, I'd love to know what you think about the Indian Jesus. And then here you go, breaking down the Indian Jesus. So we're going to go through what MBTI is and all of that stuff. Let's shout out Unwanted Foe. Welcome to the party. We got Zippy in the room. Welcome. Yes, he is on Rumble as well.
Same tag on everything.
We are all on Rumble. Awesome. So we have a poll here. Do you know what MBTI stands for? And we are 50-50. So we're going to go ahead with no on that. And I'll throw it to you. And what is MBTI?
All right. The MBTI stands for the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. It comes from roughly Carl Jung, who was a philosopher way back in the World War I, World War II era. And he came up with the idea of archetypes, which is a general oversimplification of type roles, like a warrior or a lover. Well, this mother-daughter team, Myers and Briggs, came up with a way to further define how that might affect how people think. And they came up with the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator system, which is what this system is based off of. I wasn't too happy with the way that the results worked. I was looking for something to help myself. And so I spent an awful lot of time in a dark room with a chalkboard and moving things around. And I came up with a way that made it work a little bit more logically consistent for me. And then when I was happy with that, I started putting it out on the internet for other people. And some people have found a small bit of success with it.
Interesting. So I actually have a degree in psychology, and I took certainly not a bragging here, but I took some personality courses, it was definitely earlier in my college career, and I remember not really feeling like you said, that it wasn't very accurate. So
it's like a horoscope.
Yeah, it seemed almost like like an academic version of astrology. And so you changed it from how the actual how I would have learned it 10 years ago in college.
Yes, I have to tell you how I got there quickly.
Please.
Jordan Peterson told me to clean my room. He has a quote where he says, "What would your life be like if you gave 100%?" And I really started thinking about that because I'm disabled. Like, I know how familiar you are with my story, but I have 13 discs that are either herniated or bulging.
Wow.
I used to have severe trouble walking, and I needed to clean my room. And so I wanted to apply myself. And so I started looking for a way to do that. And Jordan Peterson has a system that he uses to do somewhat what I am doing. And it didn't work for me. It was a little bit too general. It was a little bit too vague, and it didn't have a structure that I could use to actually change anything. So I started looking at some of the other systems that were similar. Came across Myers-Briggs. And there were some people on the internet doing it. Some rather large personalities now, but they weren't then in the field. And neither one of the systems that they used worked for me either. It was, again, too general. It was like throwing a horoscope. I was like,
Yeah.
The determining factors should not be obscure. That's why the system has 5 dichotomous choices, right? It is A or B 5 times, and it tells you what you've got. I feel like my characteristics are encompassing enough in each one of them that they don't need any subcategories or maybe it's this. It can be pretty clearly defined over a long period of time in an honest situation what it trends towards, right? And the dichotomies are you are either things or ideas, right? And that means that you either concentrate on things that you can put your hands on or more towards ideas that you really can't. When you get those things, which you identify with, right? So let's go with things. Do you want a new thing or do you want an old thing?
I want a new
what
thing.
That means is, do you want to get all the nice, pretty things, or are you interested in this one thing that is the best thing? Is it all the cars or is it this particular car? Is it all the colors? Is it this particular color? That is the difference between gathering and organizing. And then you have whether you do that for yourself or for the tribe. Now, your tribe's a little bit tricky because it is who you have decided is your people. Mm-hmm. It's not everybody unless you decide it's everybody.
Right.
But normally it's your family. It's your coworkers. It's the people that you closely associate with and you think alike with. And so that is your tribe. That is who you identify with.
And so again, these are the dichotomies, things and ideas. Right. We have new and old, self and tribe.
Right. And then you either go, you either try to control the situation or you're flexible around the situation. Right. So you either go in like Sheldon Cooper or you go in like like Leonard. Right. You're either trying to control this or you're not. You're trying to work around Sheldon. And then finally, it's whether you're direct or informative. Are you giving all the information, no matter how long it is, one time? Or are you chasing down some rabbit holes? Are you trying to over-explain things and really just dragging the conversation past where it needs to be?
And so that's all about rabbit holes, don't we, Zabi? Awesome.
And so that's the 5 choices.
Interesting. So it's like, you know, that generalized thing that isn't supposed to be, I can tell exactly who you are, but right, I can kind of get a vague outline based on these things. And you've tightened those up a little bit. Interesting.
Exactly.
Cool.
So you can determine I like things and I tend to like this best thing. So maybe this is what I identify with. Cool. And then I give you a structure to help you organize the parts you miss. Because not everybody sees everything the same way.
True. Okay, cool. So let's dive into this video here that you did. Shout out again to Mike Harlow for coming on the channel. And so this was, like I said originally, if you want to, so this video is in, this video is in the description as well, but definitely the channel is also linked in the description if you want to go check out the breakdown of Ian as well. But after that, this is when we're breaking down me. So we'll just take a little bit here and kind of dive into what we see. They introduced, you know, identity politics, and everything's gone downhill.
That's definitely idea.
All going to hell now.
That's definitely a single box, right? Everything got put into identity politics and it went downhill is a singular box.
So just right there, we're taking the notion that, you know, me saying all this stuff because of identity politics. Now, you know, this happens. And so on the axis here, what did you say that it was?
That would be an ideas right? Because
That's
you're
an
not dealing
idea.
with the physical things and you're trying to make the best idea out of it, right? I think that this is all caused by this one thing. It's not this one thing is causing all of these things, which would be a gather ideas, but it's all of these things is making this one thing happen. It's
Gotcha.
like saying religion causes all wars. It's putting everything into the one box.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's play out a little bit more. Just wanted to make sure we know what we're watching. Bradley said wanting less government would be an act of inaction. Wanting more government.
Like we didn't get any, I'm going to back it up just a second. We didn't get any things at all. That was all idea. And it was all singular idea.
Identity politics and everything's gone downhill.
It's all going to hell now.
Bill Bradley said wanting less government would be an act of
I remember not being able to read this.
Government requires an action to which the people want. What? All right. Wanting less government would be an act of inaction.
Shout out to Bill Bradley.
Wanting more government requires an action to which the people that want less government
Super
react.
chat twice.
So in that sense, the GOP would react to Dem attempts to expand government while not taking actions that would expand the government. I mean, I see what you're saying, but I disagree because there are actions that you could take that actually solve the problem, that create. You know how Hinge, the dating app, they advertise as the app that's
only one I'm not on.
is the app that's meant to be deleted, and like if that were true.
Okay.
True, of course it's not. They want you to pay for this and that. But if it were true, then that would be a really good utility. And so if we have, the Department of Education that wants to actually fix it.
So we have an example of a thing, but it's a thing that doesn't work, right? It's a thing that is not. And so it's more talking about the idea of the thing as opposed to the actual thing. And I know that can get a little bit tricky, right? But normally it's a little bit more clear cut.
So you can, obviously most of you guys are familiar with me and how I talk. And so that's kind of, what he was doing, just going through and taking the things that I said and putting them into these categories to see what he came up with. Getting a little scrambled there.
See if we get some indicators.
Yeah. So let's fast forward here to when we get to the chart. And
let's go ahead and look at our dichotomy.
So you just tell me if you want to pause or anything. So actually, let's pause right here.
Yeah, that's a good chart spot right there.
Yeah, let's. What are we looking at here?
All right, now this is the diagnosis chart, right? This is how it's a lot easier to figure out what goes where. If you look, you got the columns that come down. At the top, you have things versus ideas. That's going to give you an S versus an N. The letters can get confusing if you're just getting into it. So this makes it easier to just find your type and go.
Okay, so we got
and at the bottom,
ideas. Yeah,
you have new versus old. So each column for that is things new, things old, new ideas, new old ideas.
All right.
Then you're going to go across, and it's either going to be self or tribe for the top two or the bottom two.
Tribe.
And then you're going to look at rigid or flexible. And rigid or flexible, I couldn't figure out how to fit into the chart and make it work because my
it's got to be 3D.
It's terrible, exactly. And so that's going to be a T or an F. If you're rigid, it's going to be a T. If you're flexible, it's going to be an F. That's just whether you control or whether you're movement. And then the last one comes into play more so into the next chart, but it goes for the third slot. Like if you see underneath IST, here we go, right here. If you see coming down, you have each of these slots is a different way of processing information. TE is external thoughts or extroverted thinking is the old way of thinking about it, but then it's introverted intuition, then it's extroverted sensing, introverted feelings. The third slot in my system is where it really gets a lot different from some of the other ones because I switch things up here. I think that this particular spot, which is the third eye area, is how you give the information back, right? This is how you have taken the information in and you're trying to explain it to someone else. And it's going to be whether or not you are direct or informative. So whether you are one or the other is going to make the difference between you are a regular, normal, whatever it is, and an alternative of the same type, which changes a little bit in how you give the information back. But overall, you still focus on the same targets. You just go about it slightly differently.
So that would be definitely a good video idea or series, maybe, to just break down the charts themselves. And
I've got a playlist on that.
There we go.
For every single one and its alternative, and how to use that to build yourself back up.
There you go. So head over to Pitt's Take and get that. So let's you just did this recently. How would you start sharing? Because obviously we could watch the whole video, but I have you here, so I'd much rather talk to you. So how would you start? Let's say that you watched this on your own and you came up with your opinion, and now you're coming to me, and I didn't see this video yet. How would you start this conversation of, I wanted you to do this, and okay, what'd you find?
Okay, so like if I was coming to you blind and you had no idea what this was, and I wanted you to take the test. Okay. It's more of a tool for yourself than anything. I always want to make that abundantly clear, because we have no right to even try to change anyone else in any way, shape, or form. But if someone were to come to me and ask, then we could talk about focuses. If I want to go to them, I'm going to want to make sure that it is in the top part of their stack. If you go to somebody in the third slot, they're going to get very defensive over it.
Well, let's stick with, just to keep it more simple, since you just did the breakdown of me personally. Let's talk about me personally. So, like, I guess, would you start with things and ideas, and you're more of a things person or an ideas person?
Okay. If I know that you're the ENTJ right here, right? What you're going to be focused on is the external thoughts, which is the TE. You're going to want the validation. You're going to want the scientific proof that this is something that other people are concurring with, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to accept it, but you're going to want to see that primarily off the top. So that would be how I would approach you in that.
And so what about what I was saying, or what did I say that would have brought you to that? And we could go.
That comes from observation, and that's another one of the things, right? The main thing to pull away from this, if you don't pull away anything else, is that people think differently and their focus is differently. And if you can choose the primary focus, all the rest of it doesn't matter. So if you're talking to someone who is dealing with ideas and they like to be controlling, that becomes evident rather quickly. And if you're talking to someone who is dealing with things and they're flexible, that becomes rather quickly too. The rest of the stack about them doesn't matter to you to address them, right? So if we were talking and we got to talking about ideas and you were trying to bring it down to an idea, then I know that we would be discussing in the realm of an idea. And I would try.
What tells you that? I mean, I agree. I'm in terms of the process. What did I say that tells you that?
Well, I would have,
I'm not looking for word for word. I'm just mean in general. We can go back to the video if you want.
Right. Well, that's here's my thing, right? I'm SI on the bottom, SI demon. My organization and remembering is absolute garbage. Like absolute garbage. Everybody on my channel knows that. And so I do have to reference back like on my own stuff all the time. Like I got the chart pulled up over here.
Yeah, let's go through. So let's just go through and we'll just do a little bit, and instead of you talking in the video, we'll let it go, and then we'll get from you what you got from that.
That's a loaded question. In terms of on the left, they have their entire power structure where it's a cult. Anybody steps out of line, they're going to feel the full wrath of the cult. Same thing as when somebody tries to leave a cult, and what happens? They come after them. So I kind of understand that, but yeah, I think the right is always reacting to the left also. Yep. So which is why they lose always.
True.
They are just
they should be much more proactive. I'm trying to get things.
So let's go. Shout out to Jesse on fire over on Instagram. So, yeah, break down what you would pause for there.
Okay, for that, That was just me agreeing and commenting some stuff that wasn't necessarily typology related. I do that as well. I get distracted.
Yeah, no. We're cool. We're chilling.
That was more just me kind of commenting on what y'all were commenting on, like kind of agreeing with y'all more than anything.
Cool. Well, let's let it ride.
Stopped on for so long.
Like, I don't know who this guy is. I'm not trying to squash you or anything, but
people on the right get bitter.
Just tired and bitter.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree that we're in a position where we're constantly reacting, but that comes from
we're in a position where we're constantly reacting. Right?
Okay, so let's take that. We're in a position where we're constantly reacting. What does that when I say that? What does that trigger with you? What does
that makes me think of the tribe?
Okay,
right. That makes me think of you are associating yourself with this group.
Because I'm
whereas
saying
somebody who was self, it would have been more I statements.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you're also looking for consistent patterns across that because contextually, I and we will change. So in that particular instance, it was more of a could go either way, and you chose a we, as opposed to you would have chosen to signify yourself as the decision maker.
Okay. And so the fact that I would say we're in a position versus I'm in a position, what does that, given that you've already kind of seen what that, what's coming next, what is that? What's the
that leads me towards tribe, right? That makes me think that you're more concerned about what other people are thinking because you are concerned about what their thoughts are going to be on it. You are trying to anticipate what their thoughts are as you're going into it. And so, and that's the thing is it's where it's at in your stack. You do that without really even thinking about it, right? The part you have to think about is the next part. The first part you do without even really thinking about it. Like me, I stuff things into the box. That's why I'm a conspiracy theorist. Whereas,
aren't we all? Only the good ones are. In fact, dilly to conspiracy theorists. Let's go. There we go. So let's say what Zippy's saying here. So what he's saying, gauge a person on how they present themselves so you can focus on the conversation on the substance of the things rather than the fluff and distractions. Zippy is trying to understand. Zippy is understanding better than I am. Doing well. No step on a snake. Hell yeah.
Some people are built to remember statistics. Some people are built to find new things, right? Let's take it back. I like to use the scientific method as a demonstration of this because people are familiar with the process, right? Mm-hmm. You have one person that formulates the hypothesis. That is your ideas person. And then the next person takes all of these ideas. Well, they more refine the hypothesis before a trial begins, right? So you get a spectrum of these things are possible. And then one person takes that and says, this is the most likely thing to occur. And then one person takes it and makes a series of experiments, which are the actual things, and says, these are the things that might affect that. And then this guy over here takes that and says, we have these results. Let's organize these results into the thing that actually happened. That's the basic dichotomy of how people think. Some people are more predisposed to analyze the data, and some people are more predisposed to arrange the different types of experiments.
Okay. And
if
so
you can think of how they think of that, right? You go up to somebody and you start a conversation with them and they come at you and they're bringing a whole bunch of possibilities. That's a whole lot different than if somebody comes up to you and they start quoting stats. Mm-hmm. That's what this framework is built around, is that people process the information as it comes in just a little bit differently. Their focus is different. You got four people that look at the same car, they see four different things. Somebody's got the year, somebody's got the color, somebody's got what the engine is, and somebody's got the transmission, but everybody's got a little bit something different from the same car.
Okay. And so then from my perspective of, wanting to spread my message and have more political influence and stuff like that, then I would want to know these things. I would want to know if somebody is more of self or tribe so that I know how to address that person. Is that what we're talking about here?
Absolutely. And you can quickly identify whether somebody's going to be operating in the realm of feelings or not.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
that's an easy one.
A lot of flexible people tend to operate in the realm of feelings.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of what I do is to try to strengthen that opposite in people, because everything's about balance in life, right? And so if you're really rigid, you need more flexibility. And so we as a society need to build a little bit more rigidity into our flexible people and a little bit more flexibility into our rigid people. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do here.
I think we could all rub off on each other a little bit. Guys, if you could do me a huge favor and remember to hit that like button, it is free and it helps so very much. Thank you very, very much. As we said, I'm assuming this process is to break down how a person understands things in order to better interact with them. You compile information based on what they can grasp so you can better communicate. All right. Hit the nail on the head there.
Now, see, here's the thing is, here's my guilty part in this is I'm a self, right? So I didn't do this to do it for anybody else. I did this for me. So to apply this to other people is really not what I do. I do this typology so that people can pick out things and identify it with themselves and do it to themselves, because I'm really beyond comfortable doing it to other people. Like it really took me, like the fact that you asked for it made it a whole lot easier, but to do even Ian or whatever, like that's a big step for me, because people look at that like I'm trying to be some kind of whatever. I figured out
purveyor of what is right. See, I see all. Yeah, I can definitely see that.
And I want somebody else to take it, right? I'm the idea guy. I'm on the top of the thing. Somebody else needs to develop how to apply that to other people, right? I'm not trying to take credit or money or nothing. I got my videos. I'm good with that. I help people. That's what I do. It sounds corny. I know.
No, I love it.
But it's literally what I do on my channel.
Awesome. Let's shout out to a couple people who just dropped in. We got Guam Tech. Welcome to the party. We got Virgil Kane all the way over from Manchester, England. Welcome to the party. Thank you for the heart. And we got Kelly Pittman in the building. Welcome to the party. Said it helps build relationships, gives you an understanding of one another. And again, I definitely think that we need that. Welcome to the party. CB said, you're creating a standard people can use to better understand each other. That's the goal I see you trying to eke out. Yeah, and that's oh God, I'm a fellow introverted idea guy. Yeah, we need more of you guys to speak out. So I appreciate the fact that not only are you putting your information out there, but you're here to share it with us as well. Cool. All right, so let's. I'm starting to get a better idea of this. Let's dive back in and get a little bit more of what we're doing.
Right. Now, part of that is the framing of the statement, because you're talking about the Republicans versus the Democrats. But part of that is his way of expressing that stuff. He does that often.
And just explain all of that. We'll get back.
Definitely check that out.
Us meaning the cultural right more broadly. Us not having our own culture there to put anything forth. So the only culture that's on the right seems to be not left.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I'm working on changing that.
I said shit. Me too. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, guys. I am so glad for this opportunity. As Pitt has so graciously pointed out that this is an opportunity. So let's just continue watching. Make sure we're at the proper speed. Not left.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I'm working on changing that.
Well,
oh my goodness. Shout out to Soil to Soul. Said Morty, good tonight. Oh boy.
All right, so that's very true.
So before we even go, I have a feeling that you guys in the chat already know where we're going. But before I throw it to you here, I really want them to hear it from you in your own video.
If you're doing a podcast and you're interviewing someone and you interrupt it because you get the tribe giving you positive feedback, so you give positive feedback to your tribe, that's very tribe-centered.
Thank you so much. Sorry, you're saying.
I don't know.
And that's also not very concerned with the feelings of the guest.
Yeah. So can you expand on that a little more? Because I completely agree with you, but just what you meant there.
Like, it's a little bit harder to explain the feelings part of things, right? Everybody's got their own version of feelings, but it's more if you look at the rigid and the flexible, right? The rigid is more concerned with themselves and not really about the things going on around them, whereas the people who are more flexible are very much concerned about the people around them and not so much about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
What I saw there was somebody who was very much concerned about his tribe,
Right. And real quick,
but not so much the guest.
Right. Real quick, in case you didn't catch exactly what happened, we do, of course, every single super chat or donation comes with a treat for my co-host Morty here. And in my interview with Mike, he was talking. And it was I thought it was a good time because you can hear that there was you could see that I was trying to pick a time. There was a little bit of a lull, and so I thought, oh, this is perfect. But then he was just kind of thinking and gathering his thoughts, and would have been a great a great breather, and for him to continue that would have been ideal. But I didn't allow that to happen because the super chat came in, and then I go full screen, pulling him off the screen to give Morty the super chat for you guys, and which I very much want to have that tribe. That's a perfect word for what it is, and the fact that it's Mike probably didn't appreciate that. Yeah,
and be a good host, and one's going to take priority, and it's going to be the one that's higher in your stack.
So now that you guys know for sure. Now that you guys know for sure from a third party that I am tribe centric and I am over the tribe, I'm for the tribe. When we have guests, we're gonna do super chats a little bit differently. Fair enough. Fair enough. And so what would it tell you if? Because I'm telling you that I agree with you that I don't like how that played out. So in the moment, what do you think it would have looked like if somebody who was more self, if they were in that moment, they're having the conversation, the super chat comes in, they're aware of the fact that, there's an agreement with the chat that we do the treat if the super chat comes in, but I also have the guest here and I'm being respectful to the guest. What would it look, how would that play out with somebody who was more self versus tribe in the way that I am?
They would have let it slide. They would have absolutely just let the super chat slide either to the end or to a designated time to let that happen.
I think you're right. Yeah, and I see a lot of YouTubers doing that.
Look at on Tim Cash.
Oh yeah, I would never. And that's the thing. I would never send. I mean, I'm a Timcast member, so it's not like but I would never send Tim a super chat because he's not ever going to see it. Right. I mean, maybe. But
I've got a marketing plan for my video game to do that, but that's in the future. So
nice. So that's and it like I said, it's an opportunity not only for me to tell all of you guys without being like, hey guys, trust me, I'm just gonna whatever, but to actually look and see like, not only did I make a mistake, but that was noticeable to other people. And in the moment, I was like, oh man, because I heard as soon as I went, he started talking. I'm like, oh no, but like once you commit, right. and all that stuff. So we were touching guitars. Good one. All right, so let's take one more little excerpt here, and then we'll go back to the chart and see what we got. So yeah. So shout out, definitely shout out to Soil to Soul. No shade on that. Please don't stop sending super chats. We're just doing a little bit differently. And then, wait. So there's a little bit of a low. That's about it.
I'm working on changing that.
A little bit of a low. And then he starts talking. And the
shout out to Soil too.
And like you can see on his face right there that kind of off-put him a little bit.
Yep.
Oh boy.
All right, so that's very tribe-centered.
Yeah. So let's go to the next part. And so and then it's like, so you were saying like I don't fucking know, dude. You just sent off like alarms and this and that, and
I don't know.
And that's also not very concerned with the feelings of the guest.
But I'm just who cares? There's a dog.
So on the idea that these three things,
like that leans me towards T right? If you're not really concerned about the feelings of the guest in that manner, like I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do when you're doing your own podcast, but when you're interviewing somebody, that's kind of rude, bro. Like really, like I understand that that's your shtick with your people, and that's cool. But like if it was me, it would be a little bit off-putting. That's just what it is. I'm a hard ass too.
And again, I want to completely agree with you that, and it's good to be able to be able to look at these things and see, okay, usually selfish is a bad word.
Right.
We use that in a bad context. But now seeing that not only, it's not just about the fact that, oh, I want to give, because it was Soil to Soul. Oh, I want to give Soil to Soul her due. It's not only about that.
Right.
The fact is, Soil to Soul is enjoying the show because of the show that I'm putting on. The show that I'm putting on is going well because of the interaction that I'm having with Mike, as well as the chat. But you guys are here to see the show, and I think that gives me a little bit of permission to be a little bit more selfish in that context. And it definitely speaks to the notion that I care about you guys so much.
He's definitely all about his tribe.
I'm saying, fuck you, Mike Harlow. We got my chat. So that's very interesting. Where I noticed that too when there's other YouTubers, and they'll get a super chat and they'll just put up and be like, oh, thanks, and like move on. And I feel like, well, I'm not sending you a super chat again.
Right.
Then you have the creators that do find a good balance. Typically it's where you'll talk for a while and then you'll go through some super chats and then go back to the conversation. But yeah, I mean, from all angles, that is a perfect example of using these dichotomous categories to figure out how you can better your own life as well as your interactions with other people. Very cool. Very cool. So how, when as you've been saying, you got into this to fix your, to help your own self, to fix things in your own life that you didn't like. I don't know how much you are comfortable sharing of that, but what sparked you getting into this type of thinking?
So 2020 happened, right?
Oh, did it?
I went into 2019 or to 2020 determined to already change my life. I had just come off of the Jordan Peterson thing, and December 31st, 2019, I started walking. There's more of a story to that, but that's a good starting point. And I started
that one for next time.
Trying to intentionally take charge of my health in a positive manner. And that included my spiritual health and my mental health. Mm-hmm. So I started doing a prayer walk. I started walking and saying a prayer for everybody I could think of. There's a whole list of people that I go through in my head. Some of them are personal, some of them are not. Some of them have been added along the way, and some of them I really do not like. But I pray for them by name. I pray for Joe Biden by name every single day.
Come on, man.
Because he is the leader of the country, nominally or not, and that is somebody we need to respect, even if I don't respect him in the slightest.
Respect the office.
The worst hate I ever got on YouTube was when I made a video about that. I told people that we needed to pray for people that we didn't like. I didn't even name him. People lost it.
Yeah, and isn't that so interesting? How people can kind of, in the same way you're talking about being flexible and being in their emotions. Yeah, that can also, when it comes to religion, that people kind of want to make it fit what they want it to do.
Well, there's a thing about that. Like, you can only understand according to the level that you have. I don't know if you're familiar with Plato and the Plato's cave concept.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like, if you haven't seen what causes the shadows.
Right. So if you're not familiar, real quick, anybody, Plato's cave is just basically the idea that, there's 3 men in a dark cave and there's a fire behind them and all they can see is the wall. and so the world's going on behind them, and so they can see the shadows, but they're like chained up or whatever, and that's all they can see. So they think that's the world. And then one of them, is like, oh, I'm going to try and go out, and there's different iterations of the story, but they're all like, no, don't do it. It's scary out there, or whatever. And he finally goes out and sees the whole world, and then he comes back and like, guys, there's like colors and shit out here, and they're like, come on, bro, you're crazy. And just to show that you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. You can only understand things according to what you have a grasp on.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at prophecy, I do an unconventional Bible study, and I look at prophecy in a slightly different way because I understand that. So when these people are seeing things that they don't understand, it's because they don't understand it. It could be far into the future. It could be a figment of their imagination, but they don't understand what they're looking at. They're just trying to describe it the best they can. It's the same across the board. And I chased a rabbit hole. I normally don't do that. Back to how I got to the MBTI stuff, though. I was cleaning my room while I was doing my walk, and none of these things fit. So I spent a lot of time trying to get the MBTI together, right? Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't logically consistent at all. So I built a computer program.
Well, can I pause you there? What? And again, we talked about how it's a little bit vague, but can you dive a little bit more into what you didn't like about why is that a problem?
Let's look at the current definitions of introvert, extrovert, right? They take the assumption that because you don't like to relay information, that makes you a specific type of thing. And the way that they look at it is a lot different from the way that I look at introverted and extroverted, because you can be shy and still be informative. You can have your tribe around you and be comfortable and talk for days, but you're completely shy. You don't want to talk to anybody. That doesn't fit the current definition of what I was looking for introvert versus extrovert. So I looked for something that would fit that a little bit better. I was looking for something that dealt more with less woo-woo, to put it one way, because there's a lot of left up to interpretation.
Right.
And I've been doing what I've been doing so long that I have lost all of their keys, right? Because their keys didn't fit the locks.
You're not stuck in their pigeonhole anymore.
Right. So it's hard for me to go back and talk about how their system is wrong, because I've spent so much time trying to refine how mine is better. And that's not to cast aspersions on any system that people find that works for them. Mm-hmm. But like that whole thing that's wrapped around, and you're not going to be familiar with this, but anybody that does typology will be. INFJs are super unicorns, right? No. It is an equal distribution of every type. That's because we needed every single type as we were evolving as humanity.
Yeah.
Like we need people to see problems.
Or at least a bell curve. At least a bell curve. Maybe not flat, but at least a bell curve.
And so you don't have the super rare unicorns that everybody likes to say, well, I'm the one that does the special thing, and everybody's got the special thing. So it's not one particular one, but I tried to take that out of it, right? To bring it very basic. Are you focusing on these things that we can actually define or not, right? Because they don't. Like those things are very all feelings.
Yep. Yep. So how does that play into your religiosity then? Because that kind of feels like, I have a much more charitable interpretation of what being Christian is and what believing is. Again, I grew up in the Catholic Church. I was confirmed in the Methodist Church, so it's not that I didn't have religion growing up. I was a Christian longer than I wasn't. But that sounds like what I see, especially the more silly Christians, the more lax Christians, the ones who aren't really, they just call themselves Christians. But even at the core, when you're saying that you're believing something on faith, and you're not asking for proof, like how does that fit? They seem like they seem like conflicting ideologies.
We're about to get off deep
Let's
into
do it.
woo land.
Let's do
Because
it.
I held some very unconventional beliefs, and it's a multi-layered thing, right? It is not a simple thing to explain down. But it comes down to this. God is all things. He is me. He is you. He is the space between me and you, and he is the space between me and you. We are all individual souls, and I believe that the soul is eternal. That means that we were somewheres before we were here. And that's what really started me on my journey, was that particular question right there. If we were somewheres before we were here, where were we? What were we doing? We all have our guesses about where we're going. So I wanted to know where we were coming from. And so I spent a good bit of time, and I read this book called Sacred Contracts over a decade ago. And it really got me to thinking about the course of the soul. And I'm a type of person that spends a lot of time on the internet. Because of my disability, I sit a lot. And before the last couple of years, it wasn't necessarily productive. So I spent a lot of time digging into various conspiracies, and I see patterns that I pull them together in a way. And I love religion. Ever since I was young, I had my first out-of-body experience when I was extremely young. I was pushed off of a slide and I fell, and I was outside of my body for a while. And that really just kind of kept me searching for a long time. And I found God, and I found Jesus, and then I found God again. And on the other side of...
You're lapping me. You're lapping me. I'm still trying to find it for the first time. So let's back up a little bit though. Because so you say the soul is eternal.
Yes.
What do you mean by soul? What are we?
Okay. I have a slightly different version of the Trinity than you're probably familiar with. I believe in the meat suit is your body, and your mind is what makes the decisions, right? But your soul or your spirit is the part that enables the doing or the being or the creating. So it's the part that breathes for you. It's the part that makes your heart bump. It's the part that you don't control. You have control of the body through the soul, but the spirit allows that to happen. I believe that the soul is given us for an experience. We are here, in my estimation, as part of God's experience. God is, and he is so much that he cannot be inside of himself. You can't be inside of your own hand. And so in order to have experiences and any type of a growth, we are here to have our experiences. I believe that before we were here, we all agreed to help each other to learn things.
Where does that come from?
That was coming from the sacred contracts, got me started on this theory. There are correlations that I pull out of the Bible. I can't pull you references as I'm not reading through it, but part of my Bible study is that, and it comes from various other sources as well, that the soul is eternal and that it goes somewheres. It's a little bit shadier, right? This is my theory.
Yeah, because I'm trying to get a because everybody says Christian, everybody says soul, everybody says spirit, everybody says God, everybody. Well, I mean, people generally mean the same thing when they say Jesus, but all these other words, I generally understand. It's not like I don't have any frame of reference for when somebody says the word soul, but it's very different depending on who we're talking to. Even religion and faith and God and all they're very different. So I'm just trying to get a gauge of are you what is it that you believe? So what makes you, just sticking on this first point, what makes you, or how do you know that we have a soul, or that you're
purely experiential?
Okay.
Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't try to say that I'm doing something that is scientifically provable on the spiritual end. I have had experiences that are beyond most. I have what's called aphantasia, right? I cannot close my eyes and willfully visualize anything. Not a blade of grass, not a box, nothing. But I haven't had an experience, while not under the influence of anything, of other outside I was taken on a guided tour of the universe, like while I wasn't tripping or anything. So
Right, but we do know that
Right.
hallucinations and delusions are a thing, right?
Right.
So what was how did you confirm? Okay, no, I'm not crazy. This is real. Because
Well,
that's what I would think.
the lean into that
Or
for
I think
me,
somebody
right?
dosed me with something.
The hardest part of that is that for me is that because of I can't tell you in a way that will ever convince you, but I can be convinced for myself because I could not have caused it myself, right? I was fully awake, I was fully aware, and yet this thing happened that I can't do myself with no determinable cause. Now it could have been a stroke, but for me, I can take that as a faith confirmation.
Fair
And
enough. Fair
I,
enough.
and that's one of the things that I try to emphasize in what I'm doing too is what I'm doing is not for everybody, right? I am taking an exploration of my faith and why I believe the way that I do so that other people can again have a framework for their own exploration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anybody to like take what I say and do things like
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Christ Brings a Sword says, does God have the power and wisdom to recreate us without a soul?
I would have to ask him.
Yeah, exactly. It goes right back. Well, it depends on what you mean by soul.
Like,
It depends on what you mean by God. It depends on what
Like,
that's exactly what
I do
am.
have yet another theory, right? I spend a lot
Please.
of time thinking. I call it the theory of spiritual evolution. And I believe that we started off as individual atoms, and that through the process of entropy and various processes, we have progressed in our knowledge of things and our ability to discern things. So, on the first level, you have a rock. A rock is trying to be the best rock it can. It's made up of calcium and it's made up of all these different things. And after it has served its purpose and it has been the best rock ever, it is washed away and it becomes part of a plant. And the plant grows up into the second form of life and it can't move anywhere except up. So it's 2D, right? It's going one direction.
And so at this stage, you're not saying that the rock is actually exerting agency. You're just
right.
Okay.
No, it's
just making sure. Because if we were, we would have to go left real fast.
Atom, however, might be.
There you go. There you go.
We don't know. I'm not saying I do. It's just a possibility to explore. And so through the progression of taking and eating the food, you move slightly higher up. So I do believe that there are different levels of consciousness. I don't try to attribute your actions to moving up or down in a particular way, in like you're moving from a person to a cow or anything of that nature. Or, but I do believe that we all may have been a cow at some point, and that
meaning that the atoms
were the best cow, our soul was better to move on to the next level of existence.
Okay. So on the soul says, I managed to listen to a few of Pitt's videos. Some really interesting takes. Definitely going to be adding more stuff to my watch list. Very interesting and underrated takes. Shout out to Soul. Interesting. So the soul is eternal.
Right.
So now that we have this idea of, okay, your experience tells you that there is a soul, and that soul is eternal. So how do you get from there is a soul to the soul is eternal?
Well, that is again just taking references from history books, basically, right? Like you have references in the Bible to the eternal damnation of the soul, or kind of, not really, but kind of. And you have the resurrection of the soul at the end times that people are looking for in that framework. And you have the theory of reincarnation that you see on the eastern end of the Asian continent. And you have different cultures. And one of the consistencies is that there is a place after. Not necessarily that there is a place before, but that there is a place after. Some of them have an after or before, but most of them are really iffy on that.
About the and
so the idea of the soul being eternal is based off of a wide net of a bunch of them.
Okay, but the again, the skeptic in me says,
Right.
okay, well, people are afraid of death.
Mhm.
And so naturally, we would want to come up with a story, since we don't know what happens after death. Most of the things that we use to explain with religion, we now most of them we understand through science. There's still a lot we don't, but death is still one of those things that we don't. And
Right.
so the feeling as having as someone who's had that story of you be a good boy and then God's going to bring you up to heaven, and then coming to a place where I no longer believe that that's the case. The fear of death doesn't change unless it's going to get worse, because you're there. It's just the end. And so why wouldn't we assume that that's the reason that all of these cultures have a story about after this very scary thing, as opposed to the fact that there is actually some afterlife?
That there's not really a good answer for that, right? That's just
Fair
one
enough.
of those things that you have
Fair
to take
enough.
on faith. Like, until it is experienced, there is no way to verify. And so, like, you can't say, even if you have the experience of, if I had the experience where I died and went to heaven and came back, I could tell you about it, but I couldn't
Please.
make you believe it. Right?
That
could
okay.
be chemicals. And so
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with my framework. I'm perfectly fine. Like, here's how I view it, right? God gave us a commandment. That commandment was love the Lord thy God with all of thy heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. We got that in Genesis. That was like way back before any law was written. That's what we were given. Go forth, subdue the earth, be stewards thereof, and shed no blood of man. That was the whole of the law that was given to us in Genesis. And so I hold that that's enough framework to build on God from. I don't need a chosen people. I don't need a redemptive sacrifice. I don't need anything other than God put me here to be the best man, the best husband, the best father, the best neighbor, the best teacher that I can possibly be. And so it's enough for me that that's the framework.
So you seem like you have as you've articulated, that you don't have a very strong I guess desire for other people to say, "Yep, you've got it right. I agree with you." It seems like you're very happy with it works, so it works.
If I
How
could give everybody the peace that I've got, I would. But
I
I
would
can't
gladly take it.
convince a single person. Like, there is absolutely nobody that I could tell anything that they can't, just take for faith.
There you go.
And so I'm not going to beat nobody.
So how do you feel about people who speak in the name of the Bible and
really
do
mad.
behave that way?
I get really mad, especially now that I've done this Bible study. Like, when you've done the time that I've done, and like, not to humble brag, right? But I'm 100+ hours into this Bible study, and I'm reading it. I'm going through and I'm doing word studies where we need to do word studies. And some of the things that are in there are not the way that I was taught, right? I grew up in Baptist Pentecostal circles, and that is not the way that I was taught. Like, Abraham was an absolutely horrid person. Like, if you go back and you read the story of Abraham, he ran off with his sister. They went through this land and he decided that he was going to have it. He sold his sister/wife into sexual bondage twice in order to scam financial gain. And like, that's just scratching the surface of what he did. And there's a lot of that in there. And if you don't apologize for it, and you just read it like it is, like, the occupation of Israel took 600 or 6 million lives. If you look at it and you break down the numbers,
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
And so I try not to apologize for the things. They were doing something to establish for themselves a framework.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. They did the wrong thing, but they did it better than anybody else. Because the things around them were really bad.
Yeah.
Like, I look at it the way I look at, like, parenting, right? sometimes you can't make your kid's life better, but you can make it less shitty. And so, like, you can't get quite to that level where they've got a really good life, but they're no longer living with the roaches and like begging for food. It's a less shitty life. And so I think that that's what happened with the Israelites. Like, where they were was really bad. And they got the framework to get a more moral structure, even if it wasn't correct.
Okay. And so, I really like to hear that, because I think that is more of the position that is more Christ-like. This Bible thumping, or Quran thumping, or whatever you want to call it, whatever religion or ideology it is, or leftism for that matter. It's not good. It doesn't work. And so, my whole thing is, I'm very focused on, how we can fix the political landscape. And, my whole thing is about how, because religion is such a big part of the right-wing platform, that it scares a lot of people away. And even though I'm an atheist and I don't believe in any of that, but I still, hold similar values. Yet I still get a lot of pushback that, well, you're not quite one of us. And it's like, well, do you want somebody who thinks exactly the same way you do? Or do you want somebody who's going to help make the world that you want to see?
And that's a lot of that is the same problem that the left has. It's the squeaky wheel syndrome.
Yep.
Like, the people who scream the loudest are the extremes, right? The people in the middle are quiet. I'm a very, very center person. I voted Green Party and Libertarian before 2016.
Based.
So, like, I didn't buy into all of the things. I registered Republican in 2016 to vote against Trump in the primary. I wanted John Kasich. So, like,
I voted for Hillary.
I'm a middle ground guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I hate to see where we're going with this dichotomy, because these squeaky wheels continuously getting the grease.
Yeah.
Whether it's the people screaming that you don't have a right to do what you wanted with you, or it's the people that saying you have to do what I want you to do. Like, both hands are just ripping the bird apart.
Yeah, really. I almost literally.
I want more cooperation.
And so let me put forth my idea of, specifically with that, how we can address that. And I've been throwing this to everybody, and trying to humble myself. And you very accurately called out the super chat thing. So I'm hoping you can tell me where I'm wrong here. That based on what I was talking about with we have the left and the right. Obviously, It's more complex than that, but at the end of the day, it's left and right. And the world is becoming increasing, or rather, the country is becoming increasingly less religious. Year over year, the largest religious group continues to be and grows are the nuns. I forget exactly what it is, but it's the survey, and they specifically ask, which religion do you follow? And the largest group every year is none, and that grows every year.
Every year.
And instead of being on the right and talking about atheism and atheist this and atheist that, because all atheism is simply saying none. Not saying I don't know, and I definitely blame a lot of atheists for the misinterpretation there, because all the things that we're saying to one side, there's an analog to the other. The nuns. What religion do you have? None. And that's a spiritual thing. That's a religious thing. And if you have your religion, then there should be the sanctity of that religion. And I'm not asking you to change your religion. I'm not asking you to give away your religion. And I'm not asking to be part of your religion as somebody who doesn't, fit all the boxes. Right. What I am asking is that outside of that religion, there's still a world where we all live. And that even though people like me don't fit in that group of the church, when we expand it, I definitely am not on their side. And they're winning. And so if you're pushing people away who are on your side, you're going to lose.
Right. Absolutely.
I think the two major things have to do with semantic obfuscation, just changing around the meanings of words, the uses of words. Which leads to linguistic creep, where people think that Larry Elder can be the white face of black supremacy, and all that kind of stuff. And then dogmatic thinking. And so I think obviously on the right, it's a belief in God. But on the left, there's the belief that, you know, a man can transform into a female, or that a black person is automatically oppressed, or a white person is automatically bad, or whatever the belief is. There's dogma, and these things can't be questioned, and that ends the conversation. That ends our ability to fix that thing. Shout out to DZ over on Kick. Yeah, and so with the dogmatic thinking and semantic obfuscation, I think if we can highlight those things and get better at, one, not doing them ourselves, and being able to point out when other people are doing, then we definitely can fix all this. And you know, there's always going to be people on the fringes, but I think we can come together and be, you know, us and then the fringes, as opposed to the fringes and then the people straggling in the middle.
Yeah, like part of what I'm doing is literally trying to create culture, right? Like I do reaction videos, and I am very selective in what I do. It is only things that are positive culture. Like I only do things that are dealing with addiction and mental issues and overcoming them, or things that are a positive nature of that sort, because I came from that. Like I have a rather rough life. We'll leave it at that. But
Fair enough.
It's really rough. And so I try to help people by finding examples and showing them. So I've managed to help people with that. And the MBTI is given the framework for helping your mental side. And what I'm doing with my Bible study is laying the framework for helping yourself with the spiritual side. It is for people seeking something to build upon, because I have torn down an awful lot. Like an awful lot. I'm starting the New Testament now, and it's about to get really rough. But
oh yeah, switching gears. Interesting. I like that. I think that's the, you know, I wish that, well, I mean, I wish that we didn't have religion. I'll be honest about that. But if we are going to have religion, then I wish it was overwhelmingly people who treated it like you guys, and you know, you specifically, Jeremy, but also you guys in the chat for the most part are normal people. And obviously that's good. But the frustrating part about that is that you guys have your own idea of what your religion is. And so when you get the crazy wacko squeaky wheels, as you're talking about, on either side, it's like, no, Christians aren't like that. It's like, bro, I'm not saying you.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if that is what you claim as your religion, then that's what you have to call it out. Right.
Yeah.
Like if anybody comes at me and they start talking about, well, God said this, then we're going to have a discussion, because I have the factual basis to talk about what you think God said in this book. Most of what people think is taken out of context. And so most dogma can be broken down in context. And that goes for both sides, right? You can't change biology. Like it's not a thing. It doesn't matter if you think you can. There is nothing that can change your chromosomes. It's just not a possibility. And so
you can wear a dress if you want. That's cool.
Exactly.
Do you? But
and you can think that God told you that it's okay to beat people in the head with a stone if they pick up sticks on the wrong day. But that doesn't make it right. Right. And so you have to be able to take a step back and look at your dogmas and try to understand, like, there's a big problem here. Like, maybe the punishment doesn't fit on either side, right? There's a severe punishment to trying to change your biology. Like, that is sterilizing a whole generation of people.
Yep.
They are no longer able to reproduce. That's pretty terrible, but it plays into the entities that I just talked about in the Bible study. And so I believe that there is a more nefarious thing going on, but it's not what people believe. It's not the Masons, right? The Masons might be a recruiting ground, but not every Mason is doing nefarious things, right? There's nobody riding a goat. I think that there are what I like to call the one mother father rule, right? It doesn't take a whole conspiracy to make something happen. It takes the dude in charge.
True.
So if you're Microsoft and you're Bill Gates and you tell this guy to do this thing, he doesn't have to know the outcome. He doesn't have to know it's bad. He just does it because it's innocuous. And so all you need is one person in the organization.
Yeah, that's and knowing that we're both fans of Tim Pool, that he all the time talks about how AI can turn us into these these automatons and not really know what's going on, where it's like you just have a job that says bring box from here to there, and it's like
the next thing you know, you blew up a building. Like,
I didn't mean to. Yeah, and I think things like that, not necessarily that particular scenario, but things like that. That's why I think it's so important that we are very clear on what it is that our principles are, our values are, what our ideal, our ideal household, community, world, all these things. What are the goals? And I always will say, like, I know you don't want to be an idealist in the sense that you're trying to go after something that's not practical. You want to be an idealist in the sense that you're very clear that the ideal is here. We're off screen. It's not, you can't get there. Right. But if we can if we are here, at least if we know we're trying to get here, we're always going to move in this direction. Without that goal,
you want to hear the ultimate goal of this channel? Like the ultimate inline goal. Everything I'm doing, and there's a multitude of things, is all pointed towards making a school. I want to make a school for people who are homeless, people who are coming out of prison and are economically disadvantaged in that type of a way, where they can learn life in a way that we did not teach them the first go around.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
That is my personal goal for what I am doing. Like, out of all of the various enterprises that I'm doing, all of it is pointed towards that school. Like, because I want to be able to help people to do things, like from doing taxes to structuring an LLC.
That's what I was going to ask you. That specifically. So, and this would be like from a young age, or as you're a little bit older.
I don't really want to deal with the kids. Like, the kids are tough, man. I want to catch the people that want to change coming out first, right? You catch people that are living homeless that don't want to be, because there's a lot that do, but some don't. Some are circumstantial and situational, and they need a leg up. And people coming out of prison where they have no other option but to fall back into the trap, or come see me, and we can get you somewhere new and do something different. But I want people who are willing to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you can't change anyone.
Yeah. And that's really cool. Because I mean, that's the core of so many issues.
Yes,
I mean, maybe I'm putting everything into one box here, but education, it's just failed. It's just failed so miserably.
That's the key issue. We have gotten to the point where we do not glorify education at all. In fact, we ridicule the people who have any intelligence. So if you're smart, you're a nerd. But where do we go if people can't think, right? We wind up here, where people are trying to change biology.
Oof, that hurts. We end up right here.
We're living it. Like, you want to talk about end times. Like, there are signs all around.
Seabass says get into that. Seabass says April 8th. I don't know. Or we call Chris brings a sword. We call him Seabass. He said April 8th. I don't know. Yeah. I remember this one because I know he said he had another one. He had another date earlier in I think it was December, and nothing happened to me in December. Yeah. So we're I'm putting a pin in that one. Shout out to Gummo.
Eschatology. I'm going to break it down for everybody real quick. If you don't see something in the sky that everybody else on the entire planet sees, it's not the end times.
April 8th is the sign. All right. I'll be looking out for it. Guamzak has an interesting question here about asking your thoughts on Tim Pool's video today of people without an inner dialogue or inability to visualize.
I saw that. And that's crazy, right? I have an inner dialogue, right? I have the monologue in my head, but I cannot see things. I don't have that. So, I do have an alternative NPC theory, though. Like, I think that we're each on our own timeline to a very large degree, right? That plays into the soul intermingling and lessons. as you go along your timeline, some people come along with you for a ways and then they separate. And anyone who is not actively on your timeline is the NPC. If they're there to teach you a lesson and they can't deviate from their script, it's because they're the NPC in your timeline at this point in time.
Interesting. So does that, so in that theory, would that mean that you would view somebody else as like, oh, they're an NPC, but in their world, they're
I've
main
been
character.
the NPC, and like I'm objective enough to see it. I have been pulled out of my character completely in a fit of rage about that quick, like into a place where I'm not, like who I'm not, for a very trivial reason. But it was to help teach this person a lesson, as opposed to me. I didn't even really have full agency in that particular moment. I just flipped a switch and for no reason whatsoever flashed out. To me, I was playing the part of the NPC in their timeline at that moment. I was keying something for their lesson.
Gotcha.
So I have a weird way of looking at things.
We can tell. We can tell. Shout out to Zippy DSM Lee. We're waiting for the break, but I am going to pull him off screen because I am a tribesman. Shout out to Zippy for the $5 over on Rumble. What is it, Rumble chat? And of course, that comes with a treat for Morty. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much, sir. So the Soul said, I noticed one of Pitt's favorite channels is Suspicious Observers. As a fellow observer myself, who doesn't buy into everything Ben Davidson says, but does think there's a cycle of catastrophe, would Pitt be willing to share some thoughts on that?
I will. I have a video on this if you're more interested in a deeper thing, but there's a 12,000 year disaster cycle. Plato describes it, right? He tells us that in the writings of Solon, there is recorded a cycle of hot and cold disasters, that we have alternatively a flood cycle and a fire cycle of earth disasters. Not everybody dies, but most people do. I think that Ben is right in most of what he says. I'm hoping that he's wrong in some of it, because if not, then I'm going to drown whenever the earth flips. But
I'm definitely drowning.
I do see a lot of correlations in biblical prophecy that deal with the scientific findings that Ben is talking about. So when he talks about the earth shaking and wobbling and the sky rolling back,
so I'm not too familiar. Can you give me a little bit more of the, just like the TLDR?
Okay.
So it's it's like alternating fire and water. Just like
so
with weather, or like some like biblical shit.
Both. What it is our Earth rotates around the sun, right? You're familiar with the solar system, and it rotates. Well, the solar system in itself rotates around a larger spot way off in the distance called the galactic center. And then that in turn rotates it against a farther off spot. And it's all moving at the same time. So you move through different areas of space, a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower sometimes. There is, in theory, which is what Ben posits, is that there is a galactic current sheet, which is like a plasma, and it is consisting of both light and dark plasma. And of course, you can see the light, but you can't see the dark. And there's filaments, and it's really very scientifically based. But the short theory is that electricity transfers through the cosmos, and that it does so in this galactic current sheet. The disaster cycle has to deal with where we come up and we kind of touch it, and it kind of grounds us out. So as we're passing through in one part of the 12,000 year cycle, which is about 6,000 years, you touch the ground, and it's like a spark, and it gets hot. And then it comes down, and when it gets to the bottom, it picks up a charge and it gets wet. That's kind of how the functionality, in my estimation, of what they're doing over there works. What they're looking for is that when the magnetic pole shifts, which it is in the process of doing, that the crust will become unlocked due to some of these mechanisms triggered by a solar eruption. Kind of, he calls it a micronova. It's not like the sun disappears, but it develops a shell, and it breaks off the shell. Pieces of that shell hit us, and there's a giant electric discharge, and the discharge is going to cause the crust to slip and reorient. There is reason to believe that this has happened in a trackable cycle. There are Milankovitch patterns and various other ways to track this. And it does seem to correlate that there could be something coming fairly soon. Sorry about that. My dog making noise.
Yeah, so is mine. Why don't you go lay down?
I got one right there, and then I got one right there.
Oh, adorable! I love dogs over here. I'm actually a dog trainer in as my actual job.
There you go. You need to talk to my wife. This is hers. This one over here, and
what are their names?
Needs help.
What are their names?
This is Sophie, and that is Merlin. He just stood up right there.
Merlin and Sophie, adorable. Of course, we got little Morty here. There he is. What, you want to come up here? No, he always does that. He'll always come up here and then jump right there. He's looking for treats. So the Soul said, I've been spending years studying this stuff along with the AGW agenda. I don't know what that is. And the end of the last ice age. And the subject is huge and indeed hard to summarize. The sun will supposedly turn black before the micronova happens. That is biblical. Indeed, it is. And that kind of stuff is...
And that would be the accumulation of the dust before the micronova.
Yeah, and stuff like that, even though it's conspiratorial, right. There is a much more reasonable way to I knew that. Okay. There's a much more reasonable way to get from what we can verify with science to there, whether it's aliens, whether it's different levels of consciousness, whether it's spirits and souls and stuff. That stuff is that can exist within the realm of or within the rules that we've already established. In order for something like a God of the Bible to exist, at least in the way that, if he was theistic in the sense that he can reach into our universe and change things, then it would have to break all of those laws. And that's the part for me that just is so difficult to grasp. And I know, you said that you're not trying to convince anybody, but I'm out here definitely, although I am not just an atheist, I'm an anti-theist. I think that religion is bad for society. I think once we can get to a place where we can all be moral, secular beings, I think the world will be a better place. I don't know, but I think. However, I am very curious if I'm wrong, and there is a God or Christianity is spotted, whatever it is, I want to know the truth. I want to be right. And so without, not you trying to convince me that you're right, but just from your perspective, how do you circle that square that we have laws of physics and the thing that you believe breaks those laws, or does it break those laws?
It doesn't, because I think that God uses science. I think that God is science. So, we think we have a firm grasp on gravity, but we know that we really don't have a firm grasp on gravity. We have the parameters of how it works, but we don't understand really the driving force behind it. I think God might be that, but there's no way to prove that, right? So again, you get into the experiential part. Mm-hmm. You have to experience the thing, or else you're never going to believe the thing. And so it gets really hard. I try to break down the dogma because I don't see there being an intervention necessary for you to have a direct relationship with God.
I'm sorry. You said you don't think I need what for a direct?
Any type of intervention. There's no intermediary between you and direct access to the divine. Right? You can go to God directly at any point with no intervention whatsoever, and he will be, receptive. I believe that the only thing that was ever required for you to be forgiven from sin was to sacrifice your sin. And so that is an inherent moral thing for me. So for me, I have zero problem discussing what I believe. I have this zero problem trying to be the light, but I have a real hard time trying to smother anybody else's light because they can find a different light. I don't believe that there is only one way to the end.
What if you did? Because that seems to be the only thing that makes sense to me. And it either is something along the lines of a deistic God that just kind of set all this in motion, or a very regimented thing like a Christianity or an Islam. I forgot what I was even going to say.
See, I see it more like your personal determination plays more of a part into it, though. Like, I don't know. I kind of got off.
Yeah. So no. So I was going to say, what if we had a reason to believe that there was one way of thinking about this that was better than saying, well, whichever way you like. Well, we find, well, actually, no, by whatever metric, this way is better. It may not be the best. There might be something better still, but this is the best one we have.
Right.
What would change about your desire to have people live by this framework? Because if we know for a fact that it's better than that, now we're saying, okay, I'm okay with other people living in such a way that is going to make society worse, or I'm not okay with it, and I want to do something in order to try to course correct and get them along what I want them to do.
Right. See, that's kind of a free will type of thing, though, right? Like,
I believe in free will.
and see, I do too. I believe.
I said I don't believe in free will.
Oh, you don't?
I do not. But no, I am a.
You're a predeterminist.
I am. Yeah, I think. I don't know.
So
I don't know what happened before the Big Bang. But if the Big Bang happened, I don't understand how where is there anything else? We had everything. It was in that one spot, and then the explosion happened, and then we're here. There's no end of the explosion, and this happened.
Right.
We're still in the explosion. So
I believe that life is cyclical, right? Like,
okay,
everything is a waveform, everything is an energy. I do have a video on this too, the 8-step harmonics of life, and that there is neither a creation nor a destruction in total. And of course, you would have to at some point, and so, but it is more of a recycling as you go along. So, I think that we are here to learn specific lessons, right? That is a very large part of my personal beliefs, and that you have the free will choice at any point in time to either align yourself more towards a good result or the not good result using objective morality, right? You can choose to murder someone. You can choose to walk away from that situation, and that is determining the course of your life. You have the free will to choose to murder someone, but you choose not to most of the time because of the consequences. But you still have the free will to choose it, right? A large part of this, like how I came to the sacred thing, is that we're going to go way back in my childhood now. And this is things that some people may be a little bit uncomfortable with. So if you're easily triggered, this might be the time to roll on. But I was sexually abused as a child. And a large part of what I believe is that I agreed to be the temptation in that situation, and that he had the choice to either not or do, and that either one of those choices would have allowed me a different set of choices. I believe that we had those choices, but this particular timeline that I'm on now is the best one. And even though that particular situation was really horrible, the outcome of that is that I've been able to help people who have been in a similar situation on the other side of that. So for me, the way that I moralize and justify that within myself is that I chose that so that I could help people if that was the outcome. But that didn't have to be the outcome. He could have had the choice to, be a decent human being. So,
well, how does that sounds like you're kind of saying, and obviously, I don't know, the details of the
multiverse.
situation, but it sounds like you're victim blaming yourself. And so again, I don't know the details, but if
No.
you're talking about when you're a child and you're talking about somebody taking advantage of you, then even without knowing much, I have to be like, hold on,
Right.
you were by being the temptation, you were
See,
wrong.
there's a long thing that went through that. My redemption arc is very long, right? Because this started, I was at 5 or 4, right? I'm not sure on the exact time, but from that point forward, my life went on a very sexual track. And you can talk about causality. I understand all that, right? But
And you're saying this was after?
And because of those choices after, like my path went rather dark. And because it went dark, I'm able to help. And so I get that that's a rationalization and a moralization even of the
Yeah, and I mean, again, I don't want to pry too much into it. I would just,
I'm perfectly comfortable. It just makes
okay. Well, yeah, because I do that that doesn't seem like there could be any situation where a child who is under 5 years old could be blamed for anything.
And it's not like a conscious choice or a blame situation. It's a soul choice. Like it really does come down to a faith type thing.
So what would you say then to, I mean, I'm fortunate enough that it didn't have an experience like that. I'm very sorry that you experienced it. But let's say somebody else had a similar experience to you, and they hear you say that, and you're and they're like, hold on, are you saying that we were the cause?
No.
Because that's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. It's like, yeah, well, I had a part in it too. And I'll even, to just kind of give a little bit more context to my question, there's definitely an aspect to that when we're talking about adults. And, if there's an essay situation, like, okay, well, sometimes, maybe not what are you wearing is an appropriate point, but, what were you doing? But I don't think that applies with children at all. So if that person came up to you, it sounds like you're blaming us.
Justification. Like in no way, shape, or form. Like the correct choice in that situation would to have been not, right? And so I never want to try to put blame on the victim. And I'm getting it. It is more of a this is where people are going to look at it as God being bad, right? Because God is. And because he is and is so big, he cannot have experience himself. Okay. But I believe in the power of growth overall in everything. And so I believe that even God has the ability to grow in certain manners. And the way that he does that is through the experiences that we have here. But they can't all be good, right? And sometimes the hard lesson is just so that God can feel pain, or just so that God can feel grief through a human lens, because he can't conceive of that in the same way. And he is a very loose term for God as well, because I really don't genderize it.
So just so I got you, you're saying that because your image of God is that God is everything, and therefore it doesn't have an experience of being a particular thing, uses humans to gather that experience.
Yes.
How does that? That means something entirely different than what you said.
I'm sorry.
Because again, you're saying I'm pretty sure you don't mean this, which is I'm pretty sure you understand what I'm implying that you don't mean. That you're saying that you caused the abuse.
No, I didn't cause it.
Right, and so when you're saying I was, especially when this is coming off of a conversation of free will, and you're talking about I was temptation. Again, that sounds like agency. of the child, be the child deciding to say, I'm going to be a temptation. I'm going to shake my little 5-year-old booty for this pedo. Like,
right. Yeah.
and I'm sure
definitely
that's
get
not
that.
what you mean. I'm sure
No,
that's not what
no,
you mean, but that's what it sounds
not
like.
even a
I
little bit.
really want you to get the opportunity to clarify that.
The full scope of human experience is pretty horrible, right? Like,
Sure.
take it away from the sexual thing, right? Let's take it to 1930s Germany. The temptation for Hitler was to not do the things that he did. But because of that, the experience of horrible was possible. That doesn't make it right, because right is objective. I don't try to project right and wrong on anything outside of individual agency. So, like, I don't have the right to aggress on anyone for any reason. I have the right fully to defend myself at any point, but to never aggress on anyone
No
for
step
any
on
reason.
snake.
And so that's my agency. And I don't put that agency on God. But other people have the same level of agency that I do.
Mm-hmm.
They have a different set of choices to make. And the accepting of the soul contracts is just me rationalizing, right? I'm not trying to say that that is a doctrinal thing that anybody else should take. It's something to explore, right? It is a difficult concept to wrap around. And for people who have been victims of that, it is difficult. Like, that's not my only instance. And it's just the first one. And it's the one that people can relate to the easiest. But the agency is what it really comes down to. Your choice is coming from that, right? Not that you're ever to blame for being assaulted. That is never the thing. But if an assault were to happen, then at least this lesson can come from.
Gotcha.
Is as close as I want to get to anything like that.
Gotcha. So you're not when you use the word, or when you use the phrase that I was the temptation, you're not saying that you were tempting anybody.
No.
That in their perspective, the same way that, a tasty sandwich might be tempting to somebody who's hungry.
They agreed to come here to be tempted.
Gotcha.
And their sole contract was to not succumb, and they failed their contract.
Gotcha. That makes a lot more sense, because I'm gonna be, that was gonna make me really, really sad.
It's difficult, right? And I haven't really been able to.
I mean, it's still really
get
sad,
feedback on it. So, like, I'm super receptive to feedback, but it has to be, positive, and it has to be well intentioned and well reasoned. And most of what you get from the internet is not that.
Nope.
And so
we try to be a little bit different around it.
Comments.
Right.
I don't mind pushback on anything, though. So
fair enough. So the soul says, sort of a stream of source energy that is pure positive energy. We choose to be closer to the source or farther from it. And as we've subjectified these objectives by naming them right or wrong.
Yes.
We've subjectified them by naming them right and wrong. It does make sense, but are you then, Soil, are you saying that there isn't such a thing as right and wrong?
Yeah, right, because that would be more, I think she meant to say objective instead of subjective there.
She's saying we choose to be closer.
These objectives by naming them. Well, no.
I think that's because then it gets into, well, this is my truth, and this is my lived experience, and I can do this because that it's my truth.
Right. And for me, the law is laid out simple, right? Like, it doesn't have all the extra stuff, like the Torah and all of the things that are added in. The law is ridiculously simple. Love God, love your neighbor, don't hurt nobody, take care of the earth, and be productive. Like, that is the fullness of God's law given to us. All the rest of the stuff was added on for man. And so, if you're staying within those frameworks, like, you're not committing a murder, You're not committing adultery. You're not stealing from someone if you're holding to the frameworks of love God, love your neighbor, and be good stewards. Right.
And you know, the only thing there again is the love God part. If and that's again in a political context. I'm specifically talking about, you know, when we talk about the politics, and Guantac said, "Don't forget the fun part, multiply." Can't forget about that. Guantac, come on up here. I did drop the link if anybody wants to come and chat for a little bit. Yeah, I think that's why I think Christianity, Judeo-Christian values, Enlightenment values, classical liberal value, whatever you want to call them, that you do find in the Bible, and what drives the Bible and what drives Christianity. I think those are good values by and large. The problem is that I don't think that dogma is a good thing. I don't think that operating on faith is a good thing. And so when we come to when the rubber hits the road, and we're saying that we should believe that, or we should do this thing because God said so, and we can't really define what God even is, much less determine whether or not God exists.
Right. That's why I try to keep it simple. Like, I try to keep it within the realm of natural laws, even. Like, if you were to be born and you were out in the middle, like Tim makes the argument for the amendments, right? Mm-hmm. You have the right to what you can do by yourself in the wilderness. So, it's hard. I get it, right? I do. The whole faith and subjective part of it, because it is completely experiential, right? Like, if you don't experience it, you can't. And that's really, I think, where we're.
Why would it? Why do you think that a God would want to? And I mean, I know you're going to say I don't know, but if we, you know, just to put the idea out there, if I was God, I would want everybody to know that, hey, as long as you just do these things, I got your back. And
I think he tried, and then
not with
people
me.
Took it off.
I tried, and he didn't. Not with me. He certainly did not. And there's a lot of people who say that. And so, yes, it must be nice if you, you know, if God came to you. Right. But if you're spending every single day for years and years and years and years, especially after you've been a believer, and you know, everybody's telling me that, you know, you just keep going, you know, keep talking to God. Eventually, he'll find you, and whatever, every single day. At what point does it become insane to be like, oh no, this is obviously the reality of the situation?
Well, let me ask you about your pattern real quick, right? So, how were you seeking?
What do you mean?
Like, was it prayer, meditation, fasting?
I'd say, yeah, meditation. I you know, after I left the faith, I had found mindfulness meditation and got through that. And now I it's just kind of, you know, time that I spend you know, with an intention or an intention thought, whether it is about God specifically, or about the truth, or about justice and the American way, or, you know, anything like that. That is that's how I try to reach God, and apparently it's not good enough.
How about silent meditations? Have you done just like a complete silence?
Yeah, I don't have anything planned. No, nothing like that.
Like, I'm just curious how other people experience and experiment in it, right? Because, like, I do a lot of energy pulling type manipulation in my meditations, but it is mostly clear-minded when I do it, right? It's not like, I look at this like prayer is when I talk to God, and meditation is when God talks back. So I'm trying to keep my mind as empty as possible. I don't have a focus that I'm really trying to do as much as concentrating on the flows of things within me.
Yeah. That's exactly. So I mean, you know, I'll keep trying it. But shout out to our boy Guam Tech. Welcome to the party. I know you were excited for this one.
Yeah, man. Can I just call you Pitt?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Shout out to you, man.
Most people have been alive.
Shout out.
Oh,
I basically just wanted to come on here and say, like, kudos to you to coming on and, you know, being able to critique and being able to have a ability to not have to go overboard just to get your point across when it comes to your critique. That's a great thing, man. So I
Right.
love the fact that this is happening right now as far as the stream. And I also did want to give a personal apology. Honestly, you probably wouldn't really care much because I haven't commented or anything on any of your videos, but I did check out a little bit of stuff, very, very small amount. And I do have to say, I came to a conclusion very quickly, and it wasn't exactly the nicest thing I could think of for you. But I will say, after hearing you out, and after basically kind of hearing how you come to your conclusions and whatnot, I can understand it now. I may not be able to agree with every single thing, but I can understand it. And you know, kudos to you for being able to take that and run with it.
I respect that.
Shout out. Let's get a Dilly. Somebody write Dilly
I
in the
appreciate
goddamn
that.
chat for Pitt.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, man.
So what did you, now that you're done sucking his asshole.
So is it the teeth? Is it the teeth that threw you off? Like the teeth throw a lot of people off.
I gotta get my shit fixed. I don't know, but
I got it really bad, so it really does throw a lot of people off.
It's all good. Can't even tell from here. There we go. So the soul with the dilly. So one sec, what did you, now that you've had the opportunity to listen to all this, what you know, like what specifically changed? What was your opinion that shifted?
Basically just getting a little bit more information on how he thinks, why he comes to some of the conclusions he has. It's always good to have long form conversation to be able to understand why somebody thinks the way they do. It's a very, I feel like, overlooked thing that we have to deal with today. And that's why we are getting so many problems that we have. And being able, again, just to be able to hear you out. I like where you're going with it. And I think that it can be useful. Yeah, basically, I just am glad to be able to hear more from somebody.
I'm always open for feedback, but I'm rather isolationist, right? Like I sit in my little box. I just unplugged that. Give me 1 second. I sit in my little box right here, and like I formulate opinions, and I gather information, and I shove them into these boxes, and so I don't get a lot of the feedback that I need. And so I try to be mindful that when I do get it, that it's generally trying to be constructive. Right? I try to assume the best intentions from people, and that's a rather new assumption for me. And so that's just how I try to operate. I have a 300% honesty policy is what I call it. I'm 100% honest with me. I'm 100% honest with God, and I'm 100% honest with my crew.
There you go. Honesty, the way to be. So one sec, you brought up the internal monologue thing. I actually didn't get. I'm pretty sure I saw the video because you know TikTok is way ahead of Twitter and YouTube. But I'm pretty sure I saw the video or a similar video to what he is responding to. Because this was something that was on the internet like a while ago. Of you know, do you have an internal monologue or not? And so I guess it's just coming back. So real quick, can you just summarize what Tim was saying and what you got from it and why you thought it was relevant here?
Basically, he was going through, I believe he ended up showing, well, he didn't show, but he was talking about a study that had been done that had the percentages of people who don't have a inner monologue and who basically, I guess you would say, kind of suffer from the NPC syndrome of not being able to think well. And, you know, the video of the girl that he had on there, I'm not going to lie, it's a little concerning. Like, to think that somebody cannot have any kind of representation in their mind of something of the outside world, I feel like is a very problematic thing. Ooh, problematic, one of my favorite words nowadays. My wife and I were actually talking about this, and she's probably watching right now at home. Hey, babe, kiss the baby for me. Basically, I was coming to a weird conclusion with this, and I want to know what you guys think about this. So, with this girl, she can't visualize anything in her mind, right? It's kind of what you were talking about, Pitt.
Was it an Asian girl?
I wasn't
Sitting at a
watching
table?
the video.
Right, okay. They said it was a
I
study.
just
Gotcha. All
listened.
right, so yeah, they
But
can't formulate that.
yeah, but she also doesn't seem to have, like, she didn't go into any detail about how she does think, but it does seem like she's not really much of a visualizer, audio, any of that. And I think I brought this up with you before, Lutch, that it really seems like a big problem with learning today is that people aren't being taught how to think, they're being taught how to memorize, right?
Mhm.
That's why there was this one lady who was talking about on I think it was a Jordan Peterson podcast, that she was so upset with the schools because her son, he could read, but he could not actually spell out the words. It's just that he memorized
the
what the words
shapes.
look like.
Yep.
And then he knew the words from that. So I was talking to my wife about whether or not it might be that the reason so many people seem to be suffering from this NPC kind of thinking is that we don't get taught to think, we get taught to memorize. And you even see it with the way people play today. Kids play, how they interact with the world around them. I can speak from experience. I know a family member who has two 12-year-olds. They're twins. I have never once seen them sit down, play with toys, talk to themselves, talk to each other, talk to the toys, which I'm sure a lot of us ended up doing when we were kids. You had an imaginary thing going on in your head while you were playing.
So you're saying this could be like I don't know if you want to say evolutionary, but an environmental thing where because kids are so stimulated and not learning things that not getting that ability. Well, let's go to Jeremy, because you said you do have an internal monologue, but you don't have that visualization.
Right. I don't. I can't see anything. Like if I close my eyes and I try to picture anything, it's like a screen of static. It's like black and white fuzz. It's just
that's crazy to me.
And that's how I can feel confident in my meditations and stuff, that I am receiving something, because I can't do it myself. I can't trick myself. And if I'm not partaking, like I smoke greenery these days because that's my pain medicine. But if I'm not doing things and I still have the experience that I cannot cause myself, then where does it come from? Like,
so
if it's not a stroke, if it's not the sun, then it's got to come from somewhere external from me.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at with it.
So when you say you have an internal monologue, like when you think to yourself, do you hear the words in your head? And
Yes.
Okay, so you have that.
Like it's me most of the time. Like I don't know that I hear other people. But
that would be an issue. Shout out.
It's okay to hear voices. It's just not okay to argue with them.
That's a good line. Shout out to Traditionalists. Welcome to the party.
I think we should teach everybody Socrates, and then that'll solve a whole lot of the problem.
Facts. Yes.
As a matter of fact, on my podcast, I have been doing that. I've been reading the works of Plato for people.
There you go. Doing the damn thing. So I mean that's so weird. That's so weird. Like if okay, Morty's not on screen, so he's behind me. If I think about Morty, I can picture the little chinny, the hairs on his chinny chin chin. So Guanta, what do you think we gain from that specifically? Obviously there's something. What do you think that is? Or what do you think we're missing out on if you don't have it?
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
No.
Basically, I was just going to say that I think this is more of this is something that we have been pushed away from, rather than something that is a natural occurring thing, in my opinion. I do think that there are multiple things kind of pushing us in that direction, and that it is not exactly healthy for people, which is why we're also seeing so many NPC-like behaviors, and even a lot of the woke stuff that we're seeing these days. People not questioning things, people not having a critique of anything, or trying to ask themselves, like, how does this actually have context in the real world of what I'm being taught? And I do think that we're losing a lot out on it. And maybe it is something that you can still learn as an adult. But to know that there might be a full generation of people out there that may not have been taught these skills or learned them, it's very crazy. And I did want to ask too, Pitt, with the fact that you don't have visualization, when you're speaking to yourself in your brain, or you do have the auditory side of it, are you able to still basically go through your regular day without having to visualize anything? Like, does that still play into the fact that you can, you know that I'm trying to think of an example, like
Conceptualize.
So, for instance, if you're trying to remember where like an apple is in your kitchen to go grab that, is it like your brain is telling you like the apple is in the cupboard, or is it anything else?
It's pretty close to that, actually. If somebody asks me where something is, I know pretty close to within an inch of where it's at. But I can't visualize that thing. I just know. It's just like it's an automatic conceptual knowledge. Like it's just there.
So when I was the video that I was talking about, that I had assumed that Tim was probably referring to, it was a girl sitting at a table with a dude and just asking these questions like, so wait, when you think about an apple, like and she's like, well, how do you remember things? And she's like, in my head, it's just like there's a bunch of folders and I can pull that information forward when I need it. And it's like, well, okay, I mean,
there's the information.
Yeah, if I'm taking, like, if I'm in school and I'm taking a test. And I'm like, oh, I think I know this, and then it comes to me, like, yeah, it comes to me. It kind of comes to me on its own, but there's also a narrative process to it. It's not just it's not just a it doesn't just, and it may not be full, like you said, I need to walk to the cabinet. It may not be that, but it's like I'm like, oh, I'm hungry, like that kind of like half like. When you're fucked up on something and you kind of know what he said, but you didn't really say it. It's a little bit like that. Shout out to Leslie. Welcome to the party. What do you let's get Leslie says, don't have a lot of time to hang out, so let's see what she's got. We can tell you humans invented conscience because they didn't want others to feel pain. Objective morality doesn't actually exist. Well, damn. All right.
It's cool to just kill people. Like,
so
if objective morality isn't a thing, then death is subjective.
So I can say yes, and also argue for the morality that you and I both hold. So yes, it is okay to there's nothing in the fabric of the universe, in my personal opinion, that says it is wrong to murder another person. However, if you are a person, I'm assuming, given that I'm a person, you don't like pain and you do like life. And so if you want to live in a society where you get to live life and you're not being bestowed pain all the time, then number one, it stands to reason that you can prevent other people from doing that to at least a significant degree by not bestowing it upon them. And, as long as they agree to that, we're pretty good. The problem is that even within similar ideologies, people don't agree to that, or will they don't want pain, but they'll hit somebody else. They don't want rules for thee, but not for me. And so the example I use all the time is the game of chess. There are objective moves that are that this move is better than that move, but there's no rules of chess that are inherent to the. We made up chess.
Right.
But once we make it up, once we determine that, okay, when we say morality, what we mean is the spectrum of behaviors that gets us from either the greatest possible well-being for all human beings, or the other end is the greatest suffering for all human beings. If that is the spectrum that we're talking about, then we can then have objectivity within that context. If that's not what we're talking about, then I don't know what the fuck you mean when you say morality.
Right. And like,
so,
I don't look at morality like drinking. Like, drinking for me is not a moral choice. Smoking, it's not a moral choice. Killing someone is.
I agree.
Like that is the basic.
I agree, but because we've chosen to
shed no blood.
I agree, but because I think there is something inherent to living in society that you're buying into the social norms and stuff. So obviously, I think it's wrong to kill people. But that's really kind of where this whole thing goes. Is okay. I can be a moral atheist.
Right?
Can everybody be a moral atheist?
No, like everybody can't do anything. Like there's no everybody.
Okay, not everybody, but not we have murderers and serial rapists. So we don't have an ideology that's perfection. Can we get to the level of
not everybody can? Right, like
Say that again?
everybody could, but not everybody can.
So
maybe a better question would be: can the majority of people become moral atheists?
Or can enough
or the majority of atheists?
If that was their true goal, then absolutely.
Yeah.
Most people who hold to atheism are just anti-God, right?
Yeah.
The same way
unfortunately,
like that's just how it breaks down. It's not that they don't necessarily believe in God. It's just that they've been hurt by what other people's conceptualization of it is. And so it pushes them away. And so they refuse to look at any possibility of it. I try to keep it general so that I'm not pushing anybody away. Is where
I like your version very well. But hold on here. I have given you a moral atheist. Where's my money? Let's
that's not moral. What's the moral question about a leather outfit or a ball gag? That's a preference. Why is that immoral? Did God tell you that that's immoral, or did a man tell you that?
Homosexuality is from the devil.
But that is
you had to kill that cow for the leather.
Come from a man. If you look very closely in the Old Testament, and this is one of the things I did, they outlaw male on male homosexuality, but they do not female. Do you think that's by chance?
Say that one more time.
They outlawed in the Bible male on male homosexuality specifically, but not female. They had multiple wives. Of course they did.
Chris Seabass is kink shaming now. They were doing the damn thing.
I don't believe that God says that you can't be gay.
Yeah, and I
think that God gives you a full life, being happy, and cuts off your gene pool.
And with that, actually, you were talking about JBP, so maybe you might kind of like what he had said about it was like the Sodom and Gomorrah story, his take on it. If I remember right, his whole thing was basically not so much that it was the act of the gay happening, right?
The gay. It's right. We're past the 2-hour mark. It's a dick in the butt.
Right. It was more so the fact that the men were so willing to go so far to try to punish. Who was the person and whoever it was.
Saul.
Whoever it was. Yeah, and that they were the men in the city were willing to go so far that they had even went to say that we will basically rape you.
Yeah,
and it wasn't so much that it was the gayness that God was like, you fucking, what are you doing? Yeah. It was more of just like, wow, you fuckers are gone. Like, what the hell's wrong with you right now? You're going to go that far?
Because I did a whole segment on this specifically, Sodom and Gomorrah. And the great sin of Sodom and Gomorrah was not homosexuality. They had been practicing homosexuality for a long time.
Pride or gluttony?
They were forcing it upon people. These two angels walked into town, and the whole town was like, hey, we want them. And they go into Lot's house, and Lot's like, no, you can't have them. Here, take my daughter instead. And they're like, no, we want these two guys. This is what's going to happen right now. And that's why the judgment was brought down on Sodom and Gomorrah. It wasn't because of the sexuality. It was for the forcing of your ideals on someone else. They were forcing homosexuality on people. And there's no correlation to be drawn today with that at all, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, as much as I am now, I call myself a 2015 liberal because, I've only very recently even stopped caring that people called me conservative, and I just like, all right, whatever. I guess you call me conservative, I'm conservative, because I'm definitely not liberal anymore. I definitely was.
It has moved too far.
Yeah, and I was one of these default liberals. I wasn't paying attention. And sorry, you guys have heard this story a million times, but I was a drug addict. At the end of college, and a few years after that. So I kind of wasn't paying attention to anything. Came out of that, and then I was like, oh, I'll be really smart and watch Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN to get all the information. And I know better now, but that's what led me to feel like at the election that if I was a Bernie bro, but if I didn't vote for Hillary, that the end of the world was going to happen. Trump is going to do this, that. And it took a little while for me to be red pilled, because I've always been skeptical. I've always been anti-establishment, but they are very, very good at their messaging, the semantic obfuscation, these ideas that they implant, that it's an axiom that Donald Trump is bad and bad for America. And that's an axiom. You can't question. What do you mean? Is that even true?
Right.
And so, having been burned by the church, in my opinion, I've been burned by the media, the skepticism. I have a tattoo on my arm that says, believe nothing except that anything is possible. Anything is possible. But I will not believe anything in particular to at least a certainty.
See, you don't have a kid yet. Huh?
No.
Like, I don't know nothing about your personal life. So, like, it's really hard to not believe in God once you've held your child. And, like, I can say that I've just graduated my youngest, right? My oldest is 20. She's about to be 22. And my youngest is 19. He's in college. And, like, I know the fulfillment that comes from that. I know what it's like to have that, like, hold that in your arm and it fits right here. And you made that. Mm-hmm. And it came from God, and you have no doubt in that moment.
I know Glomtech is bursting to respond, but real quick, I not having the experience of a child, I've definitely, I've been in love. I've had, experiences at like concerts where you're, it's that shared consciousness where you're out of body, loss of self, that type of thing. I just wouldn't ever. Or, I mean, I would have at some point, but now I wouldn't ever assume, oh, that's God. I would assume, oh, that's what that is. And I don't know what that is. And if I call it God, it prevents me from taking any reasonable, objective measure of what that actually is. But I want to throw it to Glomtech about the idea of believing in God or not believing in God after you've held your child for the first time. Because... you got a newborn? How old is she now?
8 months.
8 months. Dilly.
That's the beginning.
Oh, dude. She just started crawling today.
Oh,
so
that's amazing. Great times, man. Cherish it.
Oh, yeah. Every moment, man. Okay. I can totally actually understand why somebody would still choose to be atheist after having a child. My personal belief, and you already know my whole thing. I live as though God exists. I don't know that he exists. So I won't say what I believe God is. But what I will do is say that if there is a God, having a child is one of the greatest gifts he could ever give you. Like, it's just, man, it's like, I'll even say it this way. It's almost like God totally did a full reset on my entire life of basically telling me that everything's different and everything is simple again. Everything you can see, you can relive your childhood through your child in an even better way, hopefully.
And fix it.
Yeah.
Like, one of the best things, the thing I'm most proud of in my entire life is that my children never knew the struggles that I did. Like, I grew up with not knowing if my dad was coming home. Like, he spent the first part of my life in jail and a large part of it nodded off. And so I spent a large part of my life not knowing if my children or if my dad was coming home. So my kids never had to have that decision, right? They never had to have that fight. I came home. Even when I worked overnight, I came home and slept that day. I didn't stay away. I didn't go on the road, even though I had the choice. And so It was a very conscious decision on the backside of that. Like it completely changes your entire focus. It changes the lens through which you look at life. And it really does bring into focus that generational thing that only God can manifest.
But there are atheists who have kids, though.
There are. And here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Are they happy?
I mean, I would think if they're leftists, probably not. But that's not what atheism is.
You're right. I'm not even trying to go there because, like, I don't put a name on God. Like, I really don't. I say God and I say He because that's how people refer to them. I don't see it in that manner. I see it as the creative force, like God is.
And I would actually even add to that what you said, Lutch, is that even if somebody was atheist and had a child, it could be a benefit in a way to where they can be a little more worldly. They can be a little more materialistic and focus on the things that are right there and right then, right? Mm-hmm. So some people would see that and be like, that's not the way to do it. But there is no perfect way to do it, in my opinion. I do think that there can be a benefit. And this is where atheists do have a lot of good value, which is that they're like, we're focusing on what is actually here right now. Whereas you see the complete opposite side of that.
Life is not a waiting room.
Right. The fundamentalist Christians who are sitting there saying, I just can't wait till Jesus comes down and takes me. All right, here we go.
What are you doing?
Whatever, your life away. Let it all go to trash until then.
What are you doing now? I say this a lot too, right? There's a lot of people that walk down the aisle and they say a prayer and they think that that's going to get them somewhere, but they change absolutely nothing about their life. What do you get to call yourself converted at that point if nothing changes in your life? Like if really you're still doing the same thing. You go to church, you say the prayer, you go to work and you lie to your customer. Or you cheat your boss by sitting on the shitter for 30 minutes instead of doing your job. Like,
been there.
Haven't we all?
Come down to that's the choice you're choosing, right? That's your morality. You're supposed to be fruitful in your endeavors and be beneficial to your employer. And that is the path that you chose. And so are you following the path that you chose? Or did you just walk down the aisle and think you were going to get a get out of jail free card? And for me, it really comes down to that choice. Like for me, it's all about the actual commitment to doing better, regardless of whether God is or not. I think He is. I have had enough experience that I believe that He is. Like if I sat down and told you the number of things that He has just pulled me out of, like financial deliverance, like you wouldn't even believe. I've been homeless twice, but never without a home. And that's a weird thing to say, but I lived on the charity of other people. They gave me a home to live in while I was homeless. And so I've been provided for in a very real way. And so I have no choice but to believe my God is real. He is literally gave me my voice back in the last few months. Like if you go back to my videos from a year ago, I can barely talk. I had a growth in my throat. I'll talk like this. It took for 15 minutes tops. And now I have a voice again because I've chosen this path. Like it literally started coming back when I chose this path. And so
that's as much as I think that, I have my own opinions on, without even knowing the details of your story. I know that if you were to tell me the details, I would, we were talking about putting things in the atheist box. I would very easily be able to say, well, it could very easily not be God. It could be this, but I have no desire to do that. I have no desire to do that.
It doesn't matter to me. Like that's how I feel about abortion. Like everybody gets tied up about voting for abortion, right? I'm not getting one. Nobody in my family is getting one.
Okay, but
wait,
that's a left turn there because we gotta stick on that because you were just saying how important it is to have God for our morality so that we don't go out and murder people,
and so I don't sin.
And then, so it's okay for other people to murder as long as you don't murder.
It's not okay. But it's not up to me to tell you what your sin is. God does that. I don't tell you that it's your sin to drink. I don't tell you that it's your sin to kill your neighbor or a child.
So what if?
I just think
Okay,
it's
so
terrible.
let's. So okay, I think I'm getting where you're coming from. Guantak, you are more than welcome to stay, but if you want to head out, either way, let me know.
Actually, I will say I'm gonna go ahead and take off, babe. If you're watching, I'm heading home. I'll see you home here in a little bit, babe. Get that baby ready for me.
There you go.
Thanks, guys. I
There
really
you go.
appreciate
Thank
the
you
time.
so much for hanging out, brother. You have a good
And
one.
like, that's not to apologize for abortion in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that's what
But you have the
that's
choice to do wrong. That's
okay.
how I look at it.
Okay.
And so my
in this,
determining
so you're
factor
saying
isn't
okay. So you're saying I'm not getting abortion in the same way you're saying I'm not going to murder anybody.
right. Or I'm not going to do whatever I consider to be a sin.
Sure,
But I'm not. It's not up to me. Like, if you come to me and ask me, do you think abortion is a sin, is a murder? And I'll be like, absolutely. But if you come up to me and ask me, is it a sin? I was like, that's between you and God, because sin is between you and God. It's not for me to determine what your sin is, and it's not for me to try to beat you over the head with what I think is a sin, and whether that's a small sin like cussing or spitting on the sidewalk or whatever you happen to think
spitting
it
on the
is.
sidewalk is a sin.
It was in Louisiana. Oh well, it was against the law, but only
Ah.
on Sundays. Like, real.
That's
But
really
whatever you happen to think that the morality is, whether it's big or small, is where it comes down to you, like your convictions and your choices.
okay. So let's
I'm
take
not gonna
let's take a
facilitate those
hypothetical,
things.
because this is I want to nail you down on this, because I don't know that you actually believe that, because I think if you let's say you were somebody was about to murder, well, let's keep abortion out of it. Let's just say a 3-year-old child. There's a 3-year-old child, and you saw
Right.
somebody running at it with a knife and said, "I'm gonna stab this baby."
Right. I would be morally obligated according to my moral structure to stop that.
Okay,
But
why?
because I believe in the intrinsic value of human life, which is why I won't participate in an abortion, or I don't
Right.
agree in facilitating them. Right?
So
I don't
okay,
believe that we should be state funding them. I think
sure.
that regardless, people are going to do it.
I definitely
So
agree with that.
we should allow.
But what I'm really trying to get at is where's the line between where you say that moral imperative goes away? Because if it's right in front of you, we both agree it's your obligation morally to step in and do something. But the idea of that same child getting killed 3 years earlier in the womb, you're not okay with it, but you're not going to stop them. And nor would I.
Right.
I'm not going to go and prevent, but I would definitely have something to say about it and feel an obligation to speak on it.
Right. Like my whole thing is that I don't want to hammer people. Right. Like, I'm not going to tell you that it's good to do it, but I'm not going to let
those
that
are two different things, though, right? There's a difference between expressing your opinions and condemning something that you believe is wrong, and bashing somebody over the head with it.
Yeah, but that's a fine line to walk too, right?
Absolutely.
Where does it become your business? When it's somebody else's life, obviously, right? And it's somebody who's not responsible, obviously. But does it come down to the same thing in disciplined children? Like, do you believe that corporal punishment is something that is acceptable for people?
Generally, no. As I've gotten older and I've had more friends who've had kids, who grew up in situations where they got hit. I got hit as a kid. Immigrant parents, they gonna do their thing. And so I was always under the impression that if a child is old enough to reason with, then reason with them. If they're not, then they're not going to be able to reason why you're hitting them. But that's kind of half-baked and not really true. So without having kids, I can't really have a full opinion, because I don't know the range of behaviors and where I think it would be okay. You could present situations to me and say, do you think it's okay to use a little smack on the behind here? And I'll be able to say yes or no, but I don't know where that line would be. Right. I just don't have enough.
I have a hard time drawing the definitive line, right? I really do, because I don't want to push my ethics onto the tribe's morals. That's how my stack works. And so I want you to have as much free agency as you possibly can. I personally find abortion to be absolutely abhorrent.
Haram!
I said,
Unless
shit, me
it
too.
is a very dire life situation,
Right.
it is almost never a medical necessity.
Right.
Okay, so that argument is nothing.
Mhm.
The rape situation is, again, almost never the actual case. It's just a terrible one in every time it happens, but it's almost never the case. It is instead used as a contraceptive. And
Right.
so I don't agree with that at all. But I think that breaks down to a lack of morals and promiscuity. Right? I don't believe in promiscuity, even though I used to be a whore. Right? I used to run around and do terrible things, but that doesn't mean I want to anymore.
Mhm.
And
Well,
so,
that kind of speaks to what Zippy was saying before. That says, I'd argue most people, most religious people are midwits that just keep their heads down. I am a glorious midwit, mind you. And,
and that's the thing.
that seems like a little bit of a cop-out. That
Most
seems like
people are
this
too
is
busy. Like they're just too busy
fair,
with life to think about anything. Like you
but you're
can
not.
see that now. I'm not. You're right.
I'm not. I'm not either.
Like,
I make time for this
I'm
because
never
I
gonna
see.
vote.
I see the moral imperative. I feel that morally it would be wrong for me to know these things and have these ideas and not at least try to see. I have a video that I just put out that was kind of encapsulating most of that semantic obfuscation and the dogma and
Right.
whether you're religious or not, or all kind of encapsulated all that stuff. And I just titled it I have the answers. Or do I? But because it really comes down to if there is something we can move on that spectrum when we're talking about morality. We can move closer to the greatest well-being for all people if we do the philosophical work to understand how to do that.
If you do the horrible thing.
What do you mean?
Well, in order to enact that, then you would have to subsume the will of a great number of people, right? If you were going to outlaw abortion, for instance, right? We're going to go ahead and outlaw it across the entirety of the nation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a full 36 to 45% that is going to be vehemently opposed to that.
Okay.
And in order to do that,
there's a lot of people
you have to
opposed to
oppose
the
your
abolition of
will.
slavery too.
You're right. And that's, again, a moral, like,
And they were just wrong.
yes. Like, I
And
don't
so the
believe in
people who
slavery any more than I don't believe in, and I probably would have been fighting for the cause of abolition. But
it sounds like you wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. Because
And
right now we have
right.
an abolition argument and position that you
You're
can make
right.
on a
That's-
platform right now, and you're choosing not to do it.
that's calling me out, and I appreciate that. I really do. Like, believe it or not, I am open for correction. And like,
Delete
this
for
is
that.
an instrument that I don't spend my time in. Like, the abortion argument's not important for me.
Right.
Because, well, for one, I'm past my childbearing, right? Me and my wife are done. But I hope that I have instilled the moral fiber in my children where it won't be an option for them as well.
Right.
But I don't get to make that decision. I get to advise them.
Right.
I want everybody to stop doing all bad things. But I have a real hard problem making it against the law. Like,
yeah. And so that goes to what Zippy's saying here. Abortion law is a slippery slope which enables the government to create bad laws that harms innocent people. So no, just don't. Just do not don't make it a law. Just don't do it. And I generally, or I agree. I absolutely agree with the sentiment. However, that gets to, can we trust other people to do those things, especially without a God? And so that's the thing. Even with a God, we're not even getting people to stop murdering their children.
Well, you just made the argument for a religion.
I made the argument for religious values. I made the argument for religious values.
Well, the religion is the structure by which you enforce the values.
Sure, it doesn't have to be.
It's tribe
it doesn't have to be
feedback, and
it doesn't have
like
to be.
We have.
It is right now
a negative tribe feedback, but it should be more of like if you look at the example of Acts experientially, right? Like they were living what the church was supposed to be. They were living communally. They were sharing funds. They were all eating the meals together. They were studying together. They were building each other up. But they were also looking for Jesus to return in like 5 years. So like they got impatient along the way, and there was a whole lot of journey there, right? But I forgot where I was going with that. I'm getting
Well, just that it's, I think, kind of what Soil is saying is that she says, I feel similar regarding abortion stuff. I'm 41 and not having any more children and hoping my boys get good women who make good decisions. I think my oldest has done that.
and that's all you can do, right? Like
I
train
don't
them well
think
is
it
the way to
is.
go.
I don't think it is. Why? Okay. So why do you do your Bible study?
I do that so that I can understand what I believe,
Why do you put
Like-
it online?
so that other people can also feel like they are valid in not following the structures they have been given.
Why do you feel, why is there value in you giving that to people?
Because I have helped people.
Okay. So
Like-
so you want to help people.
Absolutely.
What more help could there be than convincing their parent not to murder them?
I agree. Like, I agree that abortion is bad. I just have a problem with the laws. Like, I'm a
Fair enough.
very fundamental, not governmental person. I want you to be just as free as it is entirely possible to be.
Fair
Nope,
enough.
there's no fertilization.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. So traditional asks, is masturbation murder? And Jeremy says, no. Wank all you want. Let's go. We
did not say
wanking. We
that.
wanking. Hit up
But
the P-Hub. Hit up the
there
OM.
are
No.
Biological processes that are
There you go.
supposed
Yeah,
to
no.
take place. And
Yeah,
if they aren't happening on a regular basis, it can cause problems further down the road.
Yeah, and it just the that would be like saying saying that eating a chicken egg is killing a chicken. And
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who think that.
Well, I mean, there are
but that's not how
fertilized
it
chicken
works.
eggs too.
What's that?
There are fertilized chicken eggs.
Okay, well, the ones that we do eat that are not fertilized, obviously, those are not the ones that we want to eat. Zuby says, well, look at 2A. People keep making illegal gun laws, so the system is broken. More reason not to have governments. I agree.
It should be the smallest possible.
Yes, I agree. However, I am not an anarchist. Maybe you could call me a minarchist, but I do think that if there is any role for the government, ensuring the sanctity of life of the citizens is what a government is for.
Then I can definitely see the argument, right? Like, I'm not opposed to a law. I just don't want to be the one to enact it. Like, it's not my voting issue. Like, I vote on the economy because the economy is supremely important. I vote on security because of the same reason. But if someone who doesn't align with me, like, I'm like Tim a lot on this too, like, who is doing it?
Right.
And
right.
if they want to choose that,
Well, why isn't the question who or what?
who or what?
That's a legitimate question. Why isn't the question who or what? Why are we assuming it's a who?
Well, I mean, then we have to be talking about assuming species, right?
Well, but there doesn't have to be any consciousness at all. It could be some you're familiar with the what a Rune Goldberg device is?
I don't know.
It's like one of those you'll see them where they have like a bunch of things that it's similar to like the Home Alone traps, but it's a machine that'll just perpetual motion and it does a bunch of shit on its own. Like you set over one domino and it does the rest. And so the idea being like, this is a lot of things happening. We got this to swing around. We got this to lift this up and move over here and put that on that and this, that, that. But there's no God that made that happen. Like, yes, we did this, but we only pushed over the first domino. And so even if there is a deistic God, that doesn't, that would end my atheism. If we could show any reasonable evidence of that, that would end my atheism in a moment. That wouldn't make me a Christian.
What would be evidence? What would be acceptable evidence for the existence of God?
I don't know. Some explanation of a something that we don't understand that is out that breaks the laws of physics, yet still works. And even then,
if it breaks the laws of physics, is it the law of physics though?
Right. Well, exactly. But we were talking about gravity before, and so we know that there's relativity, and then we break that law, and then there's special relativity. So I don't know. I genuinely do not know what would be sufficient evidence because Clarke's third law of thermodynamics, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from Magic. Let's shout out Kelly Green in the building. Welcome to the party. Coming in late, but coming in hot. What is good, brother? I know you have got some opinions here. What's good, brother? Oh, you're muted. Oh, the fancy cam. All right. Come on, fucking up the show here. Fucking up the show.
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
I haven't ever set up StreamYard before, but it's just a quick button. But anyway, yeah, I've caught just a little bit at the end here. We've talked plenty about some of this stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of catching the end, seeing what everybody thought on each end, and what you guys were discussing ultimately as far as like maybe who stands on what.
So yeah, we're kind of at the point of where I'm asking, when we have these things that are happening in the universe that we can't understand, why are we saying who did that instead of who or what did that?
And see, I see God as a what too, though. Like, I don't try to put a limit of a who on it. I believe that God is the operating parameters, so that anything we find to define it is just defining God to me. Like, I believe that God is the gravity and the motion too.
So how then do I know if God, like, how that gets me nowhere? If everything is God, then nothing is God.
Yeah. And I mean, really, it's a circular argument for a large part. Like, again, it's experiential. Like, God is the experience of God. And so until you have the experience, you're the man in the cave.
I would say to me, it's more specific as far as like Christian beliefs, if you want me to put it that way, just like straight up Christianity, we're made in God's image. So essentially you would say who, I think pretty commonly as far as our language is concerned, like you would say who. I mean, you could call it a what if it's in like a different, I mean, he may not be exactly carbon-based being, right. It's not like maybe a different dimension with different carbon-based beings, but I would say it's a who. It's obviously an understandable, like sentient, like communicable,
but we don't
being. So
yeah, so even the idea of sentience or consciousness or agency, we don't have any reason to make these claims. And so it's interesting now that we have two Christians here who have believe in the same God-ish, but don't believe in the same God. But you call yourselves Christians. You say you believe in God. We have the word God in our Constitution, and years and years and years later, from the Constitution, much less the invention of the word God, we can't articulate what are we even talking about. Shout out to Mike. What's good? Mike says, "What's wrong with saying I don't know why we Why do we have to attach God to it?"
And I'm fine with that. Like, I'm perfectly fine with where I said, and like, I'm perfectly fine with explaining why I feel like I do. Like, I'm not very good at it, but I try. But like, I'm perfectly fine if you want to believe completely differently from me. Like, that's where I really do differentiate a lot from traditional religious roles. Yeah. It's like, I think that you can absolutely find God in the Pillars of Allah or the text of the Zoroastrians. Like, I believe that you can find truth and salvation in that without it having to be.
See, but then again, it's fine if you're saying you can find these things, but when you use the word truth, that is something verifiable. And by your own definition, it's experiential, and it's you can't call it truth. And that's where people like me, it's like, hold on a second, hold on. It's fine if you have a belief system. It's fine if you believe in things that you can't show me the evidence. I am not the arbiter of what you can and cannot believe. But when they're, again, coming from a political perspective, if you're using whatever it is, either the idea that you can transform into a man, being born a female, then, or that there's a God in the sky who's telling us all what to do. Well, before we make laws on that,
I don't.
You need to prove that. So that's really where I'm coming from.
To be keeping that as objective as possible too, right? Like, I hold very firmly to the non-aggression treaty. Like, you don't have the right to aggress on anyone, and that includes on their personal property. So your law should be restricted pretty much solely to that. It should be like you shouldn't be able to kill someone or steal from someone or those things. Now, the abortion thing gets into that, and I'm perfectly fine if they outlaw it. Like I have zero problems
So
whatsoever.
you're more just on the philosophical.
Yeah, I'm agnostic about that. Like I
Mm.
really, it's not relevant to me in the way that it is to other people. I understand the moral argument. I just don't know that that's the
Right.
nail I want to hit.
So, Kelly, let me ask you how you feel about the notion of somebody being a Christian, believing that abortion is wrong, but saying, yes, I agree with you that it is murder, it is wrong, but when it comes to the politics of it, I don't want to get involved in that.
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, okay. I believe it would be kind of an injustice to stay out of it to those who you think are in the wrong. And again, as far as Christianity, that all comes basically what we know comes from the Bible and the structure that created it, which was a religious entity. You know, it was religion that brought those books together. It was a group of people and stuff. So, being that if you think it's moral imperative that, you know, you save life, and in the Bible, it says that the little ones, it talks about people be better off drowning themselves in a river or something like that if they were to harm God's children, lead them to sin. And I would say that if it says you shouldn't kill, it's supposed to leading them to sin. If you're not supposed to kill and you kill the little ones, then if you believe that the little ones in the womb, which is, I think most people would agree if you're Christians, that's conception that's given by God, that it would be a worse sin to kill them. And again, not to tell people or get into it was probably, I mean, again, you could do it softly. You don't have to command people and beat them over the head and stand on the corner like some of these religious groups that will, you know, say, hey, you're wearing a short skirt, and they stand out downtown by the bars and go, you guys are going to hell. But I mean, as far as like standing on that and having your opinion and making it known, and also like kind of pushing others to do it or go that way, and at least letting them know that they're in the wrong, is like a moral imperative, because you don't want to like stand back and let others like be led to hell. Again, as far as Christianity is concerned,
I
stuff,
probably
that would
should
be
take a firmer stand on it. Like,
well, you don't have to. Yeah, I don't think you have to like.
I'm not trying to put that on you. Like, I'm just saying, like, you're making very valid points, and I probably should consider whether or not I should take a firmer stand on it.
I think you should too, but that's not what we're doing. And yeah, I think it's
exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the point of discussion, is to bring out these ideas and talk about whether or not it's something that should be considered, right? Like, that is something that's some very logical points, and it is definitely something that I should consider. Like, I've considered my point on it, but
I think it's cool that TheIndianJesus stands on the opposite side, being
right.
It's agnostic, and he's on the same par with that. Which, again, I found that with other people though. So when you're talking about these things and moral imperatives and stuff, sometimes they cross the borders too, which is cool just in itself. It's kind of a cool deal.
Word up.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hang on to Pitt too long. Kelly, I know you were watching his Bible study with us the other night. Anything that you wanted to comment on that before we head over to the after party?
Oh, I didn't quite some of it I didn't quite get the direction, and you know, just going over the Bible's awesome. You know, I think it's cool. I didn't quite get the clips I saw. I didn't quite get what you were getting at, or if you were just you know, kind of like your objective, what you were getting at. I was a little lost when we were scrolling through it, so I didn't quite
tell him what you told me, Pitt. Tell him what you told me.
Well, it was just I thought it was I can't remember exactly, but there was a lot of all over the place, and you were did I say he was inferring?
It does.
Inferring a lot of stuff. Oh no, okay. You brought astrology into it and a couple things, and I heard you say
we're talking about something with the zodiac.
With the zodiac, I don't know. It sound some of the connections.
With the Hebrew zodiac being the possibility, I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand it. It sounded, or it did sound a little
like I do a lot
of the examples
of speculation. Like a lot of speculation when I read through.
It didn't. Yeah, like I said, it didn't sound quite like coherent as far as like the Christianity, like as far as like certain explanations I would hear. I'm like, it sounded. I thought it sounded a little off base.
That is
when we listened to it. I thought
There
it.
you go.
Well,
There you go.
To the point of some of the things that you concluded, I didn't think were necessarily valuable to the message. But again, I didn't listen to it its entirety. We were clipping through it, and I thought, I was like, a couple of things. I was like, that's kind of misdirecting there. I didn't quite dig it as much. Not that it was terrible, but I didn't really dig the explanation on it.
But
so
Kelly, you do remember what we commented on when we first started it, and he said something, and we were like, oh, he's probably saying this. Do you remember?
Oh yeah. Well, no, I probably talked shit at the very beginning.
No, we were just like, because he said, I suggest you go back and watch all the videos and start at the beginning. And so when I was like,
I couldn't do that. No,
and so before
that was way too much.
Yeah, before the show, I was talking. We were talking backstage, and I was telling him that, and he was like, I did tell you to start at the beginning. Well, you did in fact tell us to start in the beginning.
Like, I like to lay out the groundwork. I really like to seed where I'm coming from in both history and the literal text itself. So I'll go through the geography, and we'll look at the actual lay of the land and where we're talking about the places. And I will talk about the cultures that surround it. I will talk about the influences that they had and the various things that I find agreeable in the Bible and disagreeable. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things that are very much something that needs to be revisited. Like if you believe in the Bible, then you should look at it objectively and read it front to back. Now, when I say that, it's really hard to read through Leviticus. I did it on camera, right? It's not it's so that nobody can ever go back and say, well, you didn't consider this option. I laid out the groundwork. I read through all the begats, and that was simply so nobody can say, well, you didn't consider this. Now, there is a possibility that there is something that I didn't consider in any of my things. And I do try to remember to put that in. When I get off topic or speculate, I make it clear. I am speculating. I am definitely off topic here. We are way off in the land of conspiracy. This is my interpretation of things. Go back and read it yourself. Always use your own discernment is the main thing that I tell people, because I don't believe, I believe that the entirety of it, for the most part, is arguing about the right way to do the wrong thing. I believe that there was never a sacrifice required for you to be forgiven for your sins. And I give several demonstrations of God relaying that to us through the prophets of the Old Testament in the Bible study. We are repeatedly told both that we do need a sacrifice and that we don't. And so it comes down to a matter of discernment to determine, do I actually need to kill this goat in order for God to say, you're free from being considered sinful? Or did what he required, which he tells us quite explicitly a lot, was for us to say, you know what, God, I messed up. This was the wrong thing to do. And I ask you to forgive me for that. And I'm going to sincerely try to change my life, taking your grace and going forward.
Well, no.
I believe that is how we are supposed to be, as opposed to rigidly adhering to these laws. Some people absolutely need law. Without it, they have no structure and they can't determine for themselves. It's just how they process information. I know that's hard to for some people to get, right? Because we do. Our morals and our ethics are higher in the stack. But some people, it's way down there. And they don't even recognize it. You see a lot of that in criminal gang activities. It's people that just don't recognize the morality.
Right. Interesting. Well, Kelly Green, anything for the people before I let you go?
You all are sinners. No, I'm just kidding.
Haram! Thank you so much for coming up,
It's
brother.
good being on, man. It's a little short time, and I appreciate you bringing me on, my man. So
I will see
talk to you
you
guys. We'll talk a little
in
more.
the after party.
Absolutely.
Peace out. That is right, guys. It is free to join the Discord server. We do have the free channels, the free chat, and the current events. But if you join as a member of the channel, you get full access, which includes the after party. I am already in the Let Us Speak voice channel for the after party. That is where we're heading as soon as this conversation is over. I don't know if Pitt's going to be there, but he is part of the server and he does have the permission, so that's up to him.
Probably not today.
Probably not today, but one of
I'm
these
an early
days.
bird. Like I normally am in bed by 8 o'clock Central Time. So like I'm up almost
Okay.
2 hours late
Yeah,
because I thought that this was important enough to do. So.
I appreciate that very, very much. And I am a night owl, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. Thank you
I appreciate the platform,
so much
though.
for
It's been
hanging
great.
out. If people weren't here at the beginning, who are you? What do you do? And where can they find you?
I'm Pitt. I'm a YouTuber. I'm also available on Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute. I do TikTok, but it's just shorts. I'm trying to be a positive influence over there as well. So YouTube is the main place to find all of my content. Everything else is just a backup. If you're looking for me, that's what.
Thank you so very much. I think we covered a lot here. We covered a lot. We started with the MBTI, and we went all over the place. But I think at the core of it, we really did focus on why we want to be up here saying things to other people.
Right.
And I as much as I disagree with some of the opinions that you have, I definitely appreciate your willingness to put them out there and your desire to seek out and learn more. That's always something that we need more. We definitely need more.
Absolutely.
So thank you very, very much. If you want to hang out for a second, we could talk backstage. But if you're tired and you want to go, I will not blame you. Either way, thank you very, very, very.
I appreciate the platform, brother. You have a blessed night.
All right, and you guys make sure the video that we went over, as well as Pitt's channel, is linked in the description. Please go give him a subscription. Thank you again. And Soil says thank you for coming. Great to see you. There we go. Until next time, brother. Have a good one. All right. God damn. So we did the damn thing. Not quite what I expected. I expected a little bit more butting of heads. I expected him to be a little bit of it's another preaching. Where is the evidence? There is none. And he was very open about that. And I appreciate that. From the very beginning, he said, it's all experiential. I don't know. I can't prove anything to you. I don't know how to prove this to you. I don't know that, but I just believe, and this works for me. And so I go with it. And if that's how you live your life, great. That is how you should be living your life. Figuring out what works for you and doing that. By him not being in the political realm, it stops becoming my problem. It stops becoming my concern. I mean, to a certain extent, obviously, we, beliefs, beliefs dictate actions. And so that's why, on both sides of things, just for him personally, when he was saying, oh, I feel like, or at least I thought he was saying, I feel like, the abuse I experienced as a child, I was tempting, my abuser. So I had to pin down on that and be like, well, hold on. We're definitely not going to at least let you out of here without me saying my piece that it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. But for real, it's not your fault. But then also when we're saying, okay, if you believe that it's a moral imperative for you to stop the man that you see running towards a child with a knife to kill it, why then is it not the moral imperative to at least speak out about abortion? And so, maybe he will think on that and reconsider how much he wants to talk about that. But if not, that's perfectly fine too. So the soul kind of had the same position that, like, hey, I'm more interested in the philosophy of why I believe it's right or wrong, more than what other people should think, which is fair enough. However, you cannot complain if you're not willing to speak up. You're not. I mean, you can say whatever the fuck you want. But if you're going to sit by and have strong opinions about something while other people also have the opposite strong opinion and voice their strong opinion, so much so that it changes the political landscape and the legislation, then, I mean, it's, what are we doing? A shout out to Soil to Soul for the $5 Cash App. Said, great stream with Pitt. Feed Morty. Instructions will be followed. Sorry. A little smack in the face there. Thank you so much to our co-sponsor of the stream. Yeah, political landscape indeed is fucked. But, guys, we can fix it. But we got to say shit. We got to speak up. At the very least, we got to speak up. And, again, if you're not willing to, there are people who are. But we have to exist. And so these are the types of things that you have to keep in mind when you're navigating. What are you doing with your life? What are you doing with your time? What are you doing with your effort? What are you doing with your money? Did I say attention? Your attention. What are you doing with your attention? All of these things, it matters. And so I don't know if I finished the thought, but I was saying, when he was talking about his experiences as a child that sounded like he was blaming himself, I had to, stop him, pull him, and at least say my piece. And then also when he was like, well, yeah, I think abortion is murder, but I'm not going to tell you shouldn't do it. Like, what? That's not cool with me. That's not cool with me. And, maybe he's going to decide that, okay, I do care about this enough that I want to speak out, or maybe he doesn't. And I'm not here to say you are a good or a bad person because you speak out or you don't speak out. I'm just here to say, if you don't speak out, the people on the other side are more than willing to do so. But I'm here. So do with that with you will. Thank you so very much for hanging out. You guys know I will be here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And we have a goal. We have a goal. That goal we will solve the goal. I don't know if it's going to be the exact goal that I have right now. It might change over time, but it will happen. Whatever it is, it will happen. Just keep coming back, keep doing the thing, keep being part of the conversation. We are rolling. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. Big shout out to Zippy and Soil to Soul, the co-sponsors of the stream. Thank you to Guamtech and Kelly Green for coming on up. And a big shout out to Pitt Steak for a very, very, very interesting conversation. Until next time, guys, once again, this is Morty, and I am your host, Lutch, a.k.a. the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, I am out of here. Peace.